I'll have to look at the calendar when I get
Good job.
Dave, are we good? Dave, we good? Yeah, thanks. I'd like to welcome everybody here, and thanks for being early. But so 5 o'clock we do a book study on the board, so you get to listen in on the book
really
study.
exciting.
That's exactly right. Yeah, hey, Chris, good to see you. All right, so we'll get rolling.
Okay, great. Thank you, President Goligoski. Appreciate that. And those, we've got a lot of folks here that are here as guests this evening and whatnot. We really appreciate our familiar faces and our faces who are here maybe for the first time. We'll try to go through this really quick, and then, like Stan says, at 5:15, we'll get rolling on the main important part of the meeting. So we've been going through this book, which is about being a good school board member. It has a kind of a funky name, How Not to Be a Terrible School Board Member, right? And so it's got these scenarios, I don't know, there's about 30 of them or something like that, of things that a hypothetical school board member did that maybe not such a great idea, what could they have done better? And so we're looking at chapters or terrible habits, right? Number 19 and 20 tonight, is that right?
Yep.
Did I get those right? Okay, good. Terrible habit number 19 is confide in a reporter. So they're obviously suggesting that's not a good plan. What should we do instead? Who can maybe summarize the scenario for us?
I'll do it.
Do it.
So school board member's name is Richard, and they had a school board meeting the night before, and they had talked about extending the kindergarten day, and Shirley Sherman calls him while he's on his lunch at work from the Tri-City News, and she's really just looking for a sound bite, something that'll make her article pop. And so she kind of, he's busy, he doesn't really have time, but she asks some questions and she pushes him, and he finally says something about the price projections were screwy, but it was really kind of a short, brief comment. And on the next day on the front page it says superintendent's plan called screwy. And anyway, it was
Let's just make sure that never happens here, please.
I'm looking for a way to insert that somewhere, but not coming up.
The Prescott Courier person isn't here because I was going to give her a good soundbite, but
I think she does. Yeah, she's often covering other things at conference night. I know she always watches these afterwards. So let's be thoughtful about what we say. No, that's great. Really good summary, and then it gives some options of what this person might have done a little bit better. Right? Warn the reporter you're in your noisy cafeteria at work. You're a little unfocused. So your answers might not be up to par. Just say that and then go ahead with the phone interview anyway. Number 2, before you hang up, say, oh, by the way, I was speaking off the record. Okay, that's number 2. Option number 3, try really hard to focus and answer the reporter's questions. That's kind of what this person did here in the first place. Number, 4, I guess. Listen to the reporter's questions, but insist, I got to call you back later. I got to have some time to process. And number 5, don't even answer the call. You know it's a reporter from the Courier or from the Tri-City News or whatever. Avoid that one. So what did the book suggest is the best approach, and why are the other ones not ideal? I guess would be the next phase of the discussion.
Don't answer the phone call.
No,
But I don't think it definitely was listen to the reporter, but really the noisy room was part of the scenario as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's really more to be thoughtful on what you're going to say. And when you're distracted, you may not have, and you're surprised, you may not have the right answer. So just kind of collect your thoughts as more of what the best option was, and then answer where you may not. You may think you're answering really well, and this scenario says, hey, they're going to pull whatever information kind of highlights or maybe sensationalizes the article. So you just have to be real thoughtful in what you're saying, and also don't consider yourself a pal or chum with the reporter, because it may not be the same angle that you're presenting. So.
That's great.
The one line I underlined was conflict is always a good storyline, which I thought is very true. So you have to be careful when you're talking to a reporter that you're not creating conflict between you and the other board members in particular. And I thought that was probably not the best way to handle it.
Good thought. Anything from the other options, the ones they said are not ideal, that stood out to anybody else? What about saying, you know what, I'd like this off the record?
That's never going to happen anyway. Everything's on the record.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough, and this suggests, I think, I mean, the way it's supposed to work ethically with journalists is if you establish that up front, they can use the information, but they're not supposed to attribute it to you, but how a reporter goes about that, you never really have control over that,
Yeah,
correct?
and I think that's, even if you're speaking to constituents or reporters or
Sure.
colleagues, you always have to be very clear that if you are talking as an individual board member.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
You are 1 out of 5, and it's your opinion. It's not the opinion of the entire board. So you have to
Or
be
of
really
the
careful with
district.
that. Or the district,
Yeah.
right. You need to be careful that you make that connection, that I'm speaking to you as B, not necessarily for the board.
Okay, good.
Which is kind of off the record, but a little bit different.
Did this scenario suggest that you shouldn't be speaking with the press?
No,
No, absolutely not. I would endorse that. I think if you have a reporter that gets with you on something, as long as you do the things you've just talked about, which is, make clear that here's my personal opinion. I don't have any problem with that. We've had board members in the past that I'd be a little worried about what they'd say, but I have full confidence in this group to share things that reflect well on the district and on yourself individually. And you're right, you don't want to speak for the district unless the board has asked you to do that, right? You've asked me to do that, and we sometimes, have a designee on something to write something up on behalf of the board, a first draft, or that kind of thing. That's certainly appropriate, but, okay. I will say this, we get pinged by the news media periodically. Was it last week? Last week, I spoke with 60 Minutes, and we regularly get calls from the Courier for things and whatnot. I don't know how 60 Minutes is going to, spin things or whatnot, but the Courier has been really pretty good over the years. I have a high degree of confidence in them to not just try to sensationalize things, right? I don't. This scenario kind of presented a situation where it looked like the reporter was kind of, like you said, out to get a little soundbite and make it pop off the paper or whatnot. Occasionally we'll get a headline that doesn't seem to match real well with the content of the article, and we'll go, what the heck? But the content of the articles is generally pretty good. They generally do a good job reporting what's going on, and fortunately we've got good things going on. So we're fortunate to have that kind of news media in town, in my opinion. Any other thoughts about this one?
One thing that I've learned over time, just especially being on the board, is when they ask questions, I feel like I always provide a lot of information, and they take a fraction of it.
That's the thing, that's for sure.
Case in point, went to the Halloween parade down at the courthouse, had all these great things to say, and what did they take out of it? My wife also did the parade when she was a girl, and that was it. But I had all this other things to say.
That might have been the most important thing, though.
It is, actually.
No, I have found that absolutely the same. How they distill everything they hear down to, what's going to fit in their article, that's a real skill. But sometimes you feel like, I just devoted 40 minutes to that, and there's one sentence. No, I hear you. Good. Okay. Do we want to move on to the next one? Is that all right?
sure.
Okay. Terrible habit number 20, garner public support. Now, that doesn't sound like, on the surface of it, a bad idea. Who can share this scenario with us?
You want to do it?
Go ahead.
Anybody want to do it? This had to do with a board member who wanted to support a plan for an after-school arts program at a school, and he wanted to pilot it at one particular school. And he had a blog. This board member had his own blog, and when that's Chris Stapleton on my phone, sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That sounds pretty good.
I'll go on, just
Smooth.
ignore him, he's pretty smooth. Sorry, that's a bad thing. So he, on his blog, not only did he say why he wanted the community, his constituents to vote his way, but he also gave them pointers of what to do when he came to the board meeting. And he also mentioned by name the board members that were not in favor of what he was promoting, and that he gave them bites. I thought he gave his people bites to come to the school board meeting at 7 o'clock, be ready to talk about these particular points, and I just thought that was totally uncalled for. So is that kind of what it was
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
I'll turn Chris off right now.
One other salient point I thought it brought up was that this person had tried to make their website look kind of official, like it was sort of sharing information on behalf of the district and not, this is Andy Freer's personal website with his personal opinion, his family, et cetera. We've had a scenario in the past where we had a previous board member came up with a website and used the district logo and whatnot, and it kind of wandered into this territory maybe a little bit. So, okay, good. So it obviously said that's not a great idea, and so the options it gave were don't blog at all, close down your website, clarify your websites provided by you rather than the school district, and provide clear links, to the school district's official websites. Lots of options here. Be less heavy-handed in your blog, invite comments on your blog, or just keep on doing what you're doing. You have free speech rights that no one can take away. There's some truth or merit to each of these. It was suggesting which one is the best option.
Number 3.
Number 3, which was, again, what?
Yeah, clarify your website, that it's provided by you rather than the district. I think that the caveat to that, though, is we all have to be careful that we're not using official district logos or making it look official. We can certainly have a website that talks about what we believe in and all of that, but it should not be linked in any way to the school district or.
Yeah, if you start off by saying, as a member of the Prescott Unified School District School Board, I want to share the following with you, that's a little different than, here's some thoughts I have.
Right.
Okay, great. Yeah, and you're right, Jane, the approach that you took with kind of lobbying against your fellow board members, that's pretty rough. It wasn't, importantly, it wasn't suggesting close down your website. You shouldn't be doing that at all. Not at all. Nothing wrong with that. Communication with people is great, and that's one way that people communicate really well these days, but they said a lot here about not just one-way communication, but two-way communication, right? Any other thoughts or ideas about this one that we should?
To me, one of the most important points was this board member was going into the board with his mind made up already. It hadn't even come up yet for discussion, and he already knows exactly how he's going to vote, and he's getting people to
Sharing that with the public?
We need to come into the board meeting willing to listen to another point of view and then make a decision.
Right, and this was suggesting that there's some ethical questions around taking the approach that you just described there, right? Having your mind made up, sharing with people in advance. There's some language in state laws around public meetings that suggests that if you're sharing how you're going to vote on something before you're even listening to the arguments and voting and whatnot, you're wandering into some real gray area as far as the way that the public meeting process is supposed to work. So yeah, great point, Brett. I appreciate that. Anything else? Okay, great. Next couple of ones that we'll do next month. Let's see. Sign a petition and ignore minor conflicts of interest. So we'll see what's a bad idea about those.
Great.
Thanks, you guys.
Well, thanks, everybody. We will start promptly at 5:15, so if you need to go drink more, can tune in, and then we start at 5:15. Thank you. November 4th, PUSD regular governing board meeting. We're going to start off by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. So Shay, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Shay.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, item 3A, consider approving the agenda. Has everybody got a chance to look at the agenda? We'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Is it all right if I mention about chairs really quick?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you've just arrived and you're in the lobby and whatnot, we've got a couple of presentations, and a good handful of us are probably, everybody's welcome to stay the whole time, but probably most of you would be bored to tears if you stayed the whole time. So within about 10 minutes, we're going to have a lot of shifting, and there'll be places to sit, et cetera. So rest assured, we're not anticipating people will stand the whole time. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Great. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 4A, consider approving the minutes from the study session, book study, and regular study and voting session meeting from October 14th, 2025. Can we get a motion?
I will make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 5, 5A, challenge coin presentation for the PUSD Facilities Grounds Department. So I asked that our department, it looks like we have all, do we have all 17 of everybody here, Chris?
We got most.
Holy moly.
Close.
All right. Well, we want to thank you. You know, our average age of our facilities is 77 years old. And somehow you guys keep us afloat. That's amazing. You know, Chris, it's not gone unnoticed that you really have created an amazing team. You know, your team has, you know, they have skills and trades behind them. It's not just, you know, they came to the table able to do multiple things, fix HVACs, take care of the grounds, look at anything that breaks within our facilities. And it's tremendous, you know, from the plumbing through, you know, all the pipes that we have to the walls to the roof. You know, anything can go wrong, and it does, and you guys are out there. You guys are out there early in the morning, putting salt out, whatever, keeping us all safe and our kids safe. So it's just more than you guys turning a wrench. You guys really care about the facilities, and you care about PUSD, and you care about this community. So we just want to say thank you. So we have some coins here. These are our challenge coins. It's from the governing board. And I'll ask some of the board members to kind of go around, and we just like to shake your hand as we're presenting those. So thank you. So if you're part of the facilities team, just you stand up, and then we'd like to shake your hand.
Yeah.
Last day, just coming out. Yeah, it was good though. Sarah got signed pictures.
Do we want to get a group picture?
They're gonna get one outside and Kathy's in the city. Perfect. Okay, perfect.
Did everybody get a coin?
B, Prescott Mile High Middle School student update. We've got Tommy Harasa and Grayson Tetrault. Welcome, fellas. You're not on the gridiron field. That's the last time I've seen both of you together. Wow. That's awesome. All right. The floor is yours, guys.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to thank you for coming to listen to our presentation today. My name is Thomas Arasa, and this is my peer, as well as my fellow 7th grader, Grayson Tetra. And today, we will be informing you about how our days go at Mile High Middle School, as well as the many extracurricular activities that Mile High has to offer. I think one of the best parts about Mile High are the exploratories. The exploratories that I take are Spanish and peer tutor. In Spanish, students can learn a new language, and they also have the opportunity to decide if they want to take it in high school. The Spanish teacher, Miss Goldson, teaches Spanish in a different way by speaking the language and having you pick up on it, just like you did with your first language when you were a baby. In Spanish, we learn to read, write, interpret, and even speak Spanish. This is different from traditional Spanish courses because it's not requiring you to look at a translation sheet and memorize the language.
Tommy and I both take peer tutor. Peer tutor is a course where we learn to better communicate with our peers, and we help other kids do things that they can't do on their own.
There are also many other exploratories like art, STEM, band, PE, choir, life skills, and broadcasting. Besides exploratories, there are also other traditional courses like algebra, speaking and listening, language arts, social studies, science, and many other math classes. Of these classes, I currently take algebra, speaking and listening, and language arts. In speaking and listening, we make many presentations and we do Socratic seminars, which is a different method of teaching that requires students to teach each other through discussion. Speaking and listening also teaches students to become great presenters and speakers, and it helps them speak in front of large crowds, just like what I'm doing right now.
Very well.
We go over standards like citing text evidence and comparing and contrasting texts. And we also do many of the other Arizona state standards.
Tommy and I both take algebra as well. Algebra is a class where we learn to solve multi-step equations with variables, graphing variables, functions, exponents, and many other algebra state standards. I also take social studies. Social studies is a class where we learn about the Cold War, World War II, World War I, imperialism, governments, and Age of Enlightenment. We also learn about many other standards for social studies. Our teacher, Mr. Felton, is a very good teacher. He gives us examples by modern day time.
One of the many reasons to get good grades in these classes is because Mile High has many sports to offer, like flag football, basketball, wrestling, volleyball, cross country, mountain biking, cheerleading, and track and field. Of these sports, Grayson and I both do flag football right now, and we plan to do basketball in the winter. I do these sports because I have fun playing them, but I also think that they build great teamworking skills and leadership skills.
Our coaches for our flag football team are our old SRO Officer Levin, our current SRO Officer Gallons, and the Prescott High School custodian coach Kareem. They don't have to do this coaching job, but they choose to do it because they love the kids and they love the sport. So they do it to get the enjoyment out of it. But if you have missing assignments or don't behave in class, then you could get put on probation or suspended for 1 game, which Ms. Tetra does a very good job on keeping an eye on. You will not be allowed back onto the team until you turn in those missing assignments or get out of trouble.
There are also after-school clubs that students can take, like gardening club, chess club, interact club, and many other clubs that students can choose from. There's also a student council that helps make the Mile High campus a better place.
In student council, the teacher, Miss Winter, does a very good job at teaching kids how to run a school snack shack for after-school sports, coming up with ideas for the assembly and Spirit Week.
These are the many courses and extracurricular activities that Mile High has to offer. Thank you for your time, and thank you for coming to listen to our presentation this evening. Is there any questions?
Ooh, I have one. Tell me a little bit more about peer tutoring.
So peer tutors, so in that class we help with like the best kids who like have teachers that help them with some kids can't read and we help them with the reading. Some kids can't solve many math problems, so we help them with math, and yeah.
That's excellent.
So it's the special needs kids that
Yes.
that are your peers, same age as you go in, and you kind of help them
Yeah.
to learn like you're learning. That's awesome.
Are there any other questions?
I'm interested, are you both 7th graders or 8th?
Yes.
7th grade.
7th graders, and you're taking algebra now?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Holy
I didn't
cow.
even do that.
So the other question I had was, I mean, you blew me away, but algebra was like the worst subject for me in 9th grade in particular. So I really kudos to you for doing that. The Socratic seminars, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because that's a concept that I think is really unique and forward for middle schoolers to be looking at. I'm just curious how that goes for you and what you think of it.
So it was invented by the Greek philosopher Socrates, and it's a method of teaching where students are in a group and they speak to each other and they teach each other through a group discussion about a certain topic.
Do you have an example?
Yeah.
So in my teacher, Miss Howdy's class, we have a table, and all the students sit at this table, and my teacher will have a topic beforehand that we discuss. And so we will all have our notes and like evidence to back claims, and then we all go around and we speak in a group.
What's one that you've done so far?
Oh, we've done one on the effects of music and the good effects and bad effects of social media.
And do you have to research that to
Yes.
come up with your own opinion, and then you defend your opinion with your
We
peers?
research the topics beforehand, and then we
That's
speak
great.
about them in the seminar.
That's awesome.
Does your teacher tell you what to think about these things, or does she give you the tools to learn about it yourself and come up with your own opinions?
Sometimes she helps us, but most of the time she just gives us a reliable site, and then we do the research on our own.
Okay, super cool.
What do you guys do in your STEM class?
So in like STEM, we don't take it this year, but I've seen kids tell me about it, and it's like kids in it they're like making projects and like learning how like aerodynamics of like a paper airplane and like how to build a paper airplane to make it fly further than a normal one.
Very great presentation. You both did great. I was just wondering, either of you interested in running for the President of the United States?
No, too much.
Well done.
Yes, very good.
Hey, gentlemen, I mean, you
That
blew
was
us
awesome.
away. Great presentation. You obviously did a lot of work. You're very comfortable up there. It shows you obviously do this in class as well. So I commend, what we're doing in the school, that you're not just learning, you're standing up and you're presenting, showing that you really do understand the subject matter. So your delivery was amazing. You obviously spent a lot of time understanding and memorizing what you're going to say here tonight. So it's not gone unnoticed, and we'd also like to present you guys with coins as well, if you don't mind.
That's pretty nice.
We'll play the video right
questions. Now we have a video on how a middle schooler's day goes.
Oh, fun.
Nice.
Welcome to Prescott Mile High Middle School. This is a day in the life of a 7th grader.
Oh my God. Right, even if we're working on the whiteboard, math is still getting done. Here. He's gonna read to you about little Peter.
Grr. Don't you dare growl at me. Kids have to go to school. It's the law. I'm a social worker. No, you're not. What's law? Don't you bark at me. Yeah. I knew you were my papa.
Oh no, it's just because it's
There's also a student council that helps make Mile High right choice.
Turn on flame. Hey, that's not nice.
That was a really...
You want me to put on?
Oh,
Yeah.
getting ready for the game.
How's Miss Megan doing?
Pick up.
Wait, hold on. I need to think of this.
Go, Tommy, go, 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 go! Go, Tommy! Woo! Let's go. Good read, Mace.
Thank you for checking out our day at Mile High Middle School.
Hi.
That's great. That's great. Super cool. Great.
Oh, he broke his challenge plan. Give him another.
Oh, good. So it's fun to see how proud the board members were. Super neat to see how proud parents were. But man, did you get a look at their teachers' faces while they were presenting? That's fantastic. Way to go, teachers.
Thanks, fellas. Great job.
Gentlemen, that was excellent.
All right, moving on to item 5C, Early Childhood Education, CTE update, and Lucy Zembick.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm here to give a presentation on Early Childhood Education 2, and we take this class at Discovery Gardens at Taylor Hicks. So I'm just going to give you some basic background about myself. My name is Lucy Zembick. I'm a sophomore at Prescott High School. At PHS, I'm a 4.0 triple threat athlete in advanced classes. I'm in clubs such as S Club, Youth Alive, Interact Club, and Badger Buddies. This year, I was also selected to be in SALT, which has allowed me to work with even more kids in early education through MAP Force. My future plans, I aspire to get my doctorates in sports medicine to become an on-field sports medicine physician, or get my bachelor's degree in education to teach at a Christian elementary school. Who is currently in the class with myself? It's me, Allison Bates, Lacey Draper, and Marley Hershey, who are all cheerleaders for PHS Spirit Line, Carolyn Westerman, who is a PHS golfer, Scarlett Rose, who mountain bikes for PHS, Jasmine Celia, and Taylor Reed. Our experiences together. We all took Child Development, or ECE 1 as it's now called, last year, which made us able and prepared to take this year's course, ECE 2. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. These are some of our kiddos at Discovery Gardens over at Taylor Hicks. You can see some of us in here. Marley's up in the top working with the toddlers on the box, which is kind of just helping them with some of their fine motor skills and working on just placing things and everything like that. You'll see a lot of pumpkins because this was taken during October. So they were working on what makes a pumpkin. So starting from the seed and growing to a full-grown pumpkin that we actually got to carve with a lot of the kids. Nice. You'll see me in the middle there. We're pretending that the classroom's a swimming pool, working on that imaginary play and just allowing them to fully express themselves in the classroom. You'll also see some of your outdoors events, so they love their bikes, their little motorcycles they call them, and then slides and all the fun stuff that they enjoy with that. Connection to ECE 1. I feel as though Early Childhood Education 1 with Mrs. Halford prepared us for this class on a more cognitive level. This class we really spent a lot of time working ages 0 to 5 on how their brain's developing and what they're really looking at and how they're understanding things, because it's more than just reading or talking with each person, but it's their brain developing and how they're really working with a peer or with an adult and how they understand things like that. The best parts of my mornings at DG. I absolutely love all these kiddos, and I love getting to work with them because at this age, you get to see how much a child can really grow. And like, this is the most, in my opinion, this is the most they'll sprout in like their whole lives, because it's literally going from a 2-year-old in the toddler room who can barely form a sentence for you to a 5-year-old who is writing full sentences and able to explain their thinking to you. The worst parts of my morning. I think the hardest part is how little time I have with these kids that I am so deeply attached to. We have 3 weeks in each classroom worth of 45 minutes Monday through Thursday. So we just get that selective time for that week and for those 3 weeks, and then we move on to the next classroom and the next kids. But during this time, you really get to grow with each child. Like, I know some of these kids' life stories at this point, and it's just really cool that I get to connect with them in such a way. My gratitude. I am so incredibly blessed and grateful that I got to be a part of the first year of ECE2. It has been a phenomenal experience, and Mrs. Tenney has made that very enjoyable for all of us, and the girls can all agree that we love this class, and we love being able to work with these kids, because a lot of us, that's what we aspire to do when we grow up.
Nice.
And that is my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Wow.
On like Fridays when you guys aren't at these schools, what do you guys do?
So Fridays, as many of you know, are short days, so we have about 30-minute class periods. We work with Mrs. Tenney at PHS, and we get to go over more of like curriculum ideas. So we use the Discovery Gardens, like their actual like curriculums and stuff like that, and we get to work on some of the stuff that a real teacher would look at as their lesson planning or designing a classroom or things like that.
Is the class one semester, or will you do this all year?
We will do this all year.
Nice. Will you just keep circulating through the different classes?
Yes, I think so. We're also working on getting into Taylor Hicks, because early childhood education is from preschool, which we're working with now, up until 3rd grade. So we are trying to kind of adventure into those older classes.
Nice.
What about transportation? Did you get yourself to and from Taylor Hicks?
So we get ourselves to Taylor Hicks just as if it was going to school, and then we have a bus that transports us from Taylor Hicks to PHS. And then once, most of us are sophomores, so once we can drive, then we'll transport ourselves.
What comes after this step? If you wanted to continue as a junior or senior, are there classes for you down the road?
We've slightly talked about that, about taking ECE2 again, because as far as right now, ECE2 is we just created this off of ECE1.
Right.
But as of right now, ECE2 is as far as the class goes, and you're hands-on with them.
Like most of our CTE classes, it's a 2-year course that they go through. But yeah, I mean, there's a possibility for sure, right?
Is there an early childhood ed program through Yavapai College?
Yes, I believe so.
Do.
If I may. So I clearly did not need to introduce my good friend here, Lucy. Known this one since 1st grade. There is an MIC TED program through Yavapai College. It is primarily online. And that's why we fought hard to get it double board approved at the MIC TED level, and then this board approved it 2 years ago.
And Ms. Bailey reminded us, it's one of how many CTE programs that we have based on Prescott High School's campus?
This would be, I think, 11.
In addition to about 30 others that kids can take through the CTED district.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yep, so many.
Well, Lucy, we thank you for the impact that you're making on, especially the younger kids. And one thing I learned through First Things First is over 90% of our brains are developed before the age of 5. So you're making a huge impact, whether I know you know that, but more so than these kids and these parents get to enjoy. Also, you are on the flag football team, is this correct?
Yes,
And you
sir.
do play defense, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were the reason that we beat Bradshaw the other night because
Yes,
you were
sir.
the defensive spy that held them to 10-plus yards in the second half of that game. So Lucy, firsthand, she's a defensive juggernaut. So, well done. And we would also like to present you with a coin for all that you're doing for our kids. Thanks.
Great.
Really quickly, I just wanted to say awesome job to both of our presenters, especially you boys. I know it's really difficult to come in a room with all adults and speak to all of them. And for you, Lucy, and for you too, I really encourage you guys to apply to be school board representatives in the future.
Nice. Yeah.
Very great.
What a treat. All right, we'll move on to item 5D, Prescott High School Quarterly Athletics Update. Missy Townsend.
So thank you for letting me come and kind of give you a little update on fall sports, which are kind of wrapping up. We've got a couple of them in the playoffs, and ending their regular seasons just occurred, and we've had a couple that have already made it through state. But really, I just wanted to make this something where quarterly I come in and talk to you, or actually 3 times, come in and talk to you after each season, because I do think that it's important for the school board to understand how important education-based athletics is and the role that that plays at the high school level, as well as the middle school and the other schools with their activities that they have. I'm very passionate about education-based athletics. I want our community to understand that what we do at the high school level is we do prepare students to win, and you're going to see evidence of that in the presentation. But we're also working really hard to make sure that our student athletes leave Prescott being better people from their experiences playing sport, through character development, through lessons of doing hard things, and recognizing that those complement each other really well and help prepare them for the future. So just to kind of give you a little idea of how things are going and how they went for the fall season, we had 367 student athletes participate in a fall sport. We had 33 coaches. We had 10 programs, but if you break down to teams, that's 25 teams. There were 186 regular season games played, 89 home events that we hosted at Prescott High School. There were 6,275 digital tickets sold for the fall season. That does not include cash sales, that's just digital tickets. And there were 512 season passes sold so far for this school year. So you can see that we have a lot of people coming through Prescott High School to come and watch these events. It was kind of funny, I had one of the head guys, I don't even know what his title was, from Sparklight come to me today. He's like, hey, I had one of my VPs come to the Bradshaw Prescott football game last week. And he's like, he came up from Phoenix, for some reason, I don't know who he knew, but he said, we want to sponsor you guys. I was like, okay, let's make that happen. So as soon as they came and see what we're about and what the facilities are like and what the crowds are like, they're like, oh, okay, we get it now. We'd actually asked them for money earlier in the year, and they kind of just dropped it. And then all of a sudden, they came back to us. So we're excited. Just to give you, we're going to go through all 10 programs. So badminton just finished their season on Friday night. They finished the regular season 14-0. They were the section champions. They made it to the Final Four. We did have a state champion runner-up, Abby Daniels. And then we had our state runner-up doubles, Annabelle Courtney and Claire Long. An amazing program, really strong coach again came through. They lost in the last set, in the third game, by 3 points. It was down to that close, and it was at the school that was competing. I feel like if we would have played that same match at Prescott, I think we might have been able to squeak that out. Cross country is heading into sectionals on Thursday, and then they will be at the state meet down in Phoenix on November 15th. So we're wishing them luck this week. As you heard from Lucy, our girls flag football team is continuing their domination that they had last year. They also just finished their regular season yesterday. What's today? Tuesday? Yesterday. They're 12-0. They're currently ranked number 1 in our division. We will be hosting the first round of the state playoffs at Prescott on November 12th at 6 o'clock. And because they won, they also are the Grand Canyon Region champions for the second year in a row. So kudos to them. Football team struggled this year with injuries. They finished the season 4-6. They played really well, hard-fought battle against Bradshaw last week. Kind of got away in the fourth quarter after we continued to see more injuries go down. I wanted to quickly share, Braylon Johnson, one of our running backs for the football team, had an amazing story, and I'm calling him, I already told him, you're hands down going to be my can-do male athlete of the year. Braylon, if you guys don't know, is the national bareback high school rodeo champion. And shortly after one of the games, about a little over a month ago, he was at a Wilcox High School rodeo, and in the chute, his horse reared back, and it broke his back. To the point where his spinal cord was shaped like this because the broken back was pushing on his spinal cord. He had emergency surgery, the doctors miraculously were able to go in, unsure if he was going to be able to walk again, and they were able to put basically his back together with rods and pens, and they told him within 3 to 6 months he's going to be back 100%. This young man was on the sidelines last week against Bradshaw cheering on his teammates, walking, has already made it through physical therapy where they're telling him he doesn't even need to come every week, he can do it as needed. It's an amazing story. He's an amazing young man, and he's only a junior, so he will be back hopefully next year, not only rodeoing, but playing football as well. So just a really neat story. It is crazy. Girls golf finished their season last week as well. They finished 10-0. They were the section champions. They finished 13th as a team for the state for girls golf for our division. And Carolyn Westerman, who you heard her name earlier, she's part of the ECE2. She qualified for state as the 12th seed and competed there last week. Kind of tough to compete against some of those country club schools, private schools that win all the state championships like Xavier College Prep. But our teams are amazing and go out there and compete, our boys and girls. Which takes us to boys golf. They also qualified for state. They were also the 12th ranked team in Division II. This is the 7th consecutive year our boys golf team has qualified for state. And previous to that, we had very rarely qualified for state. If we did, it was mostly as an individual, not as a team. So just really proud of that program. And every year we've had 2 or 3 of our boys golfers go on and play golf at the college level, often being recruited to go play at Embry-Riddle. We anticipate seeing several of these golfers that are seniors do the same thing. Our mountain bike team this weekend just finished. They finished 4th overall in Division I. And we had a state champion, Bridget Farnsworth. She was state champion JV1. And then we had a state runner-up with Lila Sawyer, who is a freshman for girls. So really proud of that program. Again, continuing to grow in numbers. We have some amazing support from our community. More coaches, volunteer coaches in this program, probably than combined for all the volunteer coaches at the high school, which is amazing to see, but just really proud of how hard they work, and the type of kids that we get to participate in this sport is just really cool to see. Our swim team is heading to the state tournament this weekend. We have 7 individual athletes who qualified based off of their times, and then we have 6 relay teams who qualified. So they will be representing Prescott High School on Saturday with a handful of them. They do preliminaries on Friday, and then the actual state meet will be on Saturday. We anticipate all of them making it to Saturday because of their current rankings. They're high enough that they'll be automatically doing that. So, and then girls volleyball, who are getting ready to play here in a few minutes. They are currently ranked number 9 in the 4A with a record of 14-3. They are playing a play-in game tonight because they sat right at that bubble seat of having that away game tonight. So we are playing Walden Grove from Sahuarita tonight. And when we win this game tonight, we will be playing Thursday night at the high seed game, which will most likely, it will be Cactus Shadows. on Thursday night at 6 o'clock down in the valley. So really proud of the volleyball program and all the things that they've been doing. Some tremendous student athletes playing in that program. If you haven't got to see a volleyball game, I encourage you to do that. I also included Spirit Line because they are one of our 10 varsity programs, and it's funny because when I first started, I was like, they don't compete at the state level, and I was like asking people, like, what should I put on here for, and then it was all of a sudden I had more things to say about Spirit Line than I did about all the other sports. But I want to just give them some pretty big kudos. They cheer at every single home football game for all the levels. They also travel to all the varsity away games and cheer. They cheered at most of our home flag football games. They perform a new routine each week that they cheer at a game. So each time during that week, they're spending that time preparing routines to dance and entertain crowds at all of our halftime games, which they do a phenomenal job. If you haven't watched those, they're incredible. We had 3 athletes, Allison Bates, Bridget DeBoard, and Phoebe Bugarin, all attended a USA Cheer College Combine a couple of weeks ago and had a lot of college coach interest for them to come and cheer in college. They perform at both of our pep assemblies, as well as the one we just had last week that was on TV with CW7. And they did like a whole promo for us with the Spirit Line. And last month they also hosted a youth night where they had about 90 youth cheerleaders at that game that they had cheering with them and doing halftime shows. So they were partnering with the community that way as well. Just how proud I am of all of our programs. As you can see, out of our 10 programs, just a lot of success with these kids, and that doesn't come, it comes with a lot of work on their part, on the coach's part, but really just this community support for athletics has been wonderful because these kids really are highlights, and getting to hear them. These are my future student athlete leadership team members, I can already tell. So I'm pretty excited to continue to see them coming up through the high school and just giving them more opportunities to showcase their talents is really what we're all about. So just wanted to give you guys that update, and if you have any questions athletics-wise, I'm here until the next presentation. Okay.
Thanks, Missy.
Thanks, Missy.
All right, we're moving on to item 5E, AP test scores. Mr. Neely.
Can you beat that, Mr. Neely?
No, I mean, you want to talk about some tough acts to follow. Full picture of being a student in PUSD and PHS. I just love it, and I get to be a little part of that next by showing you some of our data about our advanced placement courses. We're actually going to look at it over the last 5 years, and I think it'll speak for itself. Let's put it that way. I did want you to have some insight into what we have to offer. We have had other AP course offerings along the way, but these are the ones that we have consistently had. The newest one being AP Environmental Biology. That one is just getting started this year, and then we have plans to get AP Physics back in the rotation very soon. But otherwise, you guys can see all those wonderful offerings that we have. They really are available 9 through 12 in some cases, whatever it's worth. Some of them even to freshmen. We don't have a ton of freshmen taking them, but it does happen. What I really wanted to show you was just this first graph, which is the percentage of total AP students who score a 3 or better. So for those of you, these are national tests that are taken. It's a score of 1 to 5, depending on the mastery that the student shows in the content. And we've done extremely well for years. I mean, the last 2 years of 59% of our kids getting a 3 or better is something to be exceptionally proud of. This past year, we had 79% of our students who took tests receive a 3 or better. Now, you probably look at me and go, well, I'd assume we had less test takers. Nope. We had way more test takers. So here's what I want you to see. You see the total AP students across the top. We had the largest that we've had throughout that stretch with 231 students taking AP courses. The number of exams obviously coincides with that, meaning that 351 exams were taken. AP students with scores of 3 or better, 182. of those were able to go through and score A3 or better. So you can see the progress. Just something to be so proud of. It's just one of the examples of the growth that we've been making, but I think this says so much about our amazing students and our amazing teachers who are putting in so much time and effort to make sure that we find that success. And so 79% of these tests have the opportunity to receive college credit for that AP test, not to mention what that looks like on an application for college or whatever it happens to be. Now, my presentation was not as fancy as Missy's, and I was super jealous about it. So instead, you got a balloon question mark because I thought it was kind of funny. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Just have a comment. It's
Yes.
so often we hear comments from the community about test scores. It's the big deal for them. Although all of us know that's such a minor part of a child's education in PUSD. When I see this, and I say we have ammo now that we can actually use to show the community that we're not just test scores, but if you want to just look at our test scores, I would put these kids up against any school in the state. I think it's absolutely incredible that we have scores like that for our AP. So I'm so proud of them. Our athlete, I bet a lot of our athletes are in this group as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Adam,
So
what do you attribute that to? There's so many different things they can do. Early college, they can, there's early college, but there's also you can
dual enrollment as well.
Dual enrollment. I mean, there's other ways to get college credit. Why is over 230 students choosing to go the AP route when they could go the regular college route? I mean, what do you think?
I don't know that it's one outweighing the other. I'll be honest. We have 30-some students involved in the early college program at Yavapai College. We have dual enrollment offerings all over our building. I think what it really states is just that we've been able to lift the level of expectations, the results, and these students are taking advantage of what we have to offer. I really think that it's related to consistency all the way through in our schools. When you're looking at curriculum adoptions and standards-based learning, these are pieces to the puzzle that are all part of the picture of each of our students finding their, educational journey by the time they get to us. And hopefully this type of success is an example. Is AP for every kid? No, but I will tell you that the motto of AP is that anyone who's interested in taking it can take it. And again, I think that says something special about the fact that we're finding a way to make sure these kids are successful. And again, I would just reiterate, just amazing students and amazing teachers who are doing this work.
Yeah, no doubt.
I also think it's because there's so many different offerings now. We didn't used to have this many AP options, and so kids can just find something they're really interested in. And even if they're not maybe typically what would fit the box of an AP kid necessarily, because they love it or they love the instructor, many of them, I've had children choose AP Gov because of the teacher, right? They choose because they like the subject matter, they like the teacher, and they know it's going to be a good experience. But with that many offerings, it's really awesome how many more kids get to be involved.
As someone who has taken both dual enrollment classes and AP classes, personally I can say that I do prefer AP classes, mostly because I think the teachers are amazing. For example, Mr. Tislock, Ms. Holly, they're outstanding teachers. I think that they have amazing programs. And honestly, AP classes, I feel like they seem like they're more doable versus an actual college class. Yes, college classes, for example, I took dual enrollment biology and I also took AP Lang last year, and I just found AP Lang much more enjoyable, honestly. I love dual enrollment biology, but I just loved the way that the class was set up for AP Lang and AP classes in general.
Shay, you didn't think it was intimidating to go AP, or is that kind of changed?
AP classes, for me at least, were never really intimidating, but dual enrollment classes were definitely very intimidating for me. Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I think you get a mix of feedback from that. Depending on the kid, depending on what their plans are, what their future looks like, what their interests are, they find different scenarios for themselves. And again, that's our job, right? Just like you got to listen to Lucy and talk about an amazing CTE program. Those are all examples of what our job is, which is we provide something for everyone so that they can find their place, they can find success, and we can move them on to whatever is next for them. Shay's a wonderful example of somebody who's found great success out of the offerings that we have.
Yeah, well said.
One question or suggestion. At the end of the year, we always know we get data on how many scholarship dollars our students have earned. Do we ever see how many credits have our students earned? Like the number of credits AP students earn, the number of dual enrollment credits, the number of early college, the number of CTED credits that our students have earned collectively across the years. That would be really fantastic to see as a cohort of these students going out, that they're not just, and some of them may not even be college-bound students when they graduate.
Right.
They may have earned a certificate to go to work as a welder somewhere, but they've still earned some higher education credits. I think that would be really amazing to see.
That's a really good point. You know, it's interesting because obviously AP, we have to make assumptions that they would receive those depending on where they're going and how that works. But you're right, we could put it together, and actually in a minute you're going to hear about A through F scores, which include career and college readiness data, which I would tell you that I feel like I know a lot about how many credits we're getting because I do go through and do that every summer. But I'd love to see what that number looks like. I can't even try and guess at this point.
Yeah.
It's that big.
Yeah.
Adam, you touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to ask you a leading question. Do you get kids who come to you basically unprepared and then you just make them into top AP level students while they're at Prescott High School, or does it go deeper than that in PUSD?
Yeah, no, I would repeat the fact that I think it's this consistency throughout our schools that allow these kids to be successful. They are building on those skills throughout their career in school, and by the time they get to high school, hopefully we lift that level and continue to help them grow, and that's why they land in spaces like this and wherever that takes them beyond, right?
I have just a curiosity question. We look at our data, and we have most of the Prescott population going to Prescott High School 9 through 12. But in some of the early grades, they have other options that they choose to. Do we keep track of where they've done their K through 8 or K through 6 and follow those kids? And are they needing a little extra help? Are they excelling? Are they the ones in our AP classes? Are they the ones? Can you speak to that question just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we truly track that at this point. I mean, we have the data of where they transferred in from. You know, we can look and see transfer history. Did they move from Mile High to Prescott High School and prior, or did they move from another school in the community? Obviously, we have kids move in. We have all sorts of different things. So I don't know that I can give you a fair assessment of that, but, oh, Kelsey's ready, so.
Sorry.
No, I just saw the mic move and I got nervous. Go for it.
Okay. We do have some data from our A to F process that shows how students do if they've been with us for 3 years, students who've been with us for 2 years or 1 year. The longer that students are with us, the better they do perform, is what our data has historically shown us. So it's not necessarily where they went to school, but I can tell you that we do have data to support that.
We've got some very telling data, especially at the elementary school level, where that's a little easier to track. We've got the 5 years in a row. We can see which kids have been with us 5 years and how they did on their fourth grade tests, and kids who joined us, the year before and how they did. And there's a significant difference in the time that we've looked at that. Yeah, that's a good question.
As someone who did go to another school for elementary school, I went to Primavera for K through 4, and don't get me wrong, I think Primavera was an amazing school. It really set me up to be the person that I am today and to have just the determination that I have today. But honestly, when I started at Granite Mountain and went to Mile High and Prescott High School, it presented a lot more opportunities for me, and I think that is why I am the person I am today.
Well done. That's good feedback. And Brett, embedded in your question is a truth, which is that we've got kids that will go back and forth sometimes. They'll be with us for a couple of years, they'll go someplace else, they'll come back, right? So there's all kinds of dynamics there. And there is a difference in quality in some of the different schools in town in terms of the academic rigor, at least. There's great things happening at all the schools, right? But we get some kids who come to us and they're just ready to take the next step, and some kids that clearly there's probably been a little bit different focus at the charter school they're at or whatnot. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and hard to track too because there's so much moving around. It used to be, right, you'd start school and you'd just go through, so you went K through 12, right, through Prescott schools. Kids like that are relatively rare these days. We had at the at the high school graduation this last year. You had 300-plus kids graduating, and we asked kids who'd been with us K through. There were actually a fair number, 50-ish kids, but it was a small minority of kids who'd been with us all the way through. And some of that is people moving into town, right, for the terrific hot job market in Prescott and the low prices for houses. But a lot of kids have rotated in and out over the years. And we find that there's especially one for-profit charter school in town that's kind of a revolving door. Families will go there and go, whoa, and come on right back to us in a lot of cases.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
All right, item 5F, A to F letter grades. Kelsey.
She has handouts. I do. And it's colored.
All right, those are some hard presentations to follow, but I do have some exciting information to share with you about our letter grades from last year. So as you know, we took state assessments last spring, started to get data back in May, most of it in June, and then letters grades were released end of July. We weren't allowed to release them publicly until now. They were approved last week, and they are official as of last Friday. So here is where we ended for each of our schools for the 24-25 school year. And so again, lots and lots and lots to celebrate. So all A's and B's. Every single school either maintained or increased their letter grade from the year before. And that's not an easy thing to do within the system of A to F in our state. As we talked about before, it's very complicated. There are times where with our school structure, it's challenging to maximize the amount of points just because of how our schools are configured and how they calculate some of these scores, and we can talk about those in a bit. The other piece that I just want to remind you of is last year we went through pretty substantial change when it came to instruction. So we have been moving towards a standards-based system for instruction and for grading, which means we're also we've increased the rigor within every classroom. And that takes some work. We're also implementing new pacing guides that went along with that, a new assessment system, and in some cases, brand new curriculum. What you typically see with that much change is what we call an implementation dip, where you're struggling through things, trying to figure out this new system, new curriculum, new process, and you might see a little bit of a dip before you start to rise in scores. Well, we didn't see that, which is very exciting, and that tells me that we're on the right track. We've really been looking at a lot of data to make sure we're making the right decisions, students are responding to what we're asking them to do, and this is just one piece of that proof that we are moving in the right direction. Our schools worked really, really, really hard to get to where they're at. So anytime you see them, celebrate them, because again, this is no easy task.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yes.
So when my kids came home with a C, I knew that was average, and a B, I would have said, yeah, that's pretty good. And A is like, that's what you should be doing. Are those the descriptors that the state gives for A's and B's and C's? Is they say, A, that's what you should be doing, or do they call it something else? And B, is it, yeah, that's pretty good, or they call it something else? If you don't remember, I think I might remember.
Yeah, if you're looking for something, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right.
Help me out a bit here.
B means highly performing. If there's a school that has a score to B, they're a highly performing school, and A means distinguished or excellent. And every single one of our schools is highly performing or distinguished or excellent.
C means like performing?
Yeah, C is adequate performance, I think is what the phrase that they use.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
The last thing to mention on this is when you compile all of the scores, you get basically a GPA for your district. And our district this year ended with a B. We were at a 3.42 GPA. No. So we were this close to being an A district. So we That's our goal for the future, but we're really, really happy with where we're at. This is the second highest we've ever done within this system. So we had 1 year where we were collectively that A district. We were only, I think, a 1/10 of a point higher than where we ended this year. So not too far off from our best performance ever. We got some communication this morning from the Vail School District. As you remember, we're part of Beyond Textbooks with them, and they were celebrating that the average score for all of their partners was a 3.02 GPA for districts, and we are substantially above that. And again, they have told us since the beginning that we're not their typical district that they work with. Oftentimes, they do work with districts who do not have the resources and the support that we do, or who are underperforming. So we have always been kind of a standout within their system, but we just continue to be that. So that was really a proud moment too, and we said, okay, we're doing really good compared to even more of our peers.
That's great. And that's year 2 of Vail with us? Wow, that's great.
Yes. So just as a reminder, these were our scores, our letter grades for the last few years. One of the constraints within the A to F system and how it's built is there are ebbs and flows, especially with our grade band structure. So you can see in 22, that was our highest rankings year that we've had. We did have a dip in 23, and then we have corrected that for last year. But again, every school either maintained or grew within their letter grade. So I want to remind you how A to F is built. So K-8 is a separate model than high school and our alternative schools. So for our K-8 model, 50% of their score is based off of growth, 30% is proficiency, 10% is acceleration and readiness, and I'll go through what each of those are in a second. And then 10%, if you qualify, is based on the performance of your EL students. So what did that look like and how did they compile this for our K-8 scores? So here you can see proficiency levels. This is 30% of our grades. What you see here is that first top is 3rd grade proficiency on AASA. Now, one of the things I want to clarify, because you might see what the state has used as a term called passing rate. I think it's misused, and I don't really appreciate how it's being used because I think it's misleading in a lot of cases. It really takes out this partially proficient number, but these partially proficient students are not failing. And there is a misconception that they are failing. Those students have a lot of skills. They are very close to being on grade level. They just have a few gaps. That is different than minimally proficient. Minimally proficient students are probably most likely below grade level. They've got more gaps. But what A to F does that I appreciate is that it takes into account these partially proficient students in their score. So as they're compiling this data, for students who are proficient, you get a point level of a 1. So that's the goal, that's the target. For highly proficient students, you get a value of a 1.3 for each of those scores. For your partially proficient students, you get a 0.6 score for them, and then they compile all of that together. And that's how you end up with the points for average proficiency. So when you add in all of our students who are partially proficient, proficient, and highly proficient, our kids are scoring pretty well. Now, don't get me wrong. We still have work to do, and we are not letting up. We are still continuing to push and move forward and working to grow. However, we are seeing these numbers increase from year to year, and that's our goal. We want to continue to grow within here.
So Kelsey, this isn't the percent of kids who passed.
No.
It's the way that you just described it. Okay.
Yes.
Super.
That is something that the state uses really as a media clip, a soundbite, and this is different. This is the A to F process that is very different than that. So this was our ELA proficiency for 3rd through 8th grade for last year. And I just want to point out, I mean, look at Abaya Judd 3rd grade.
Sure.
They have a ton to celebrate. They had 80% of their 3rd graders who were proficient on that assessment or pretty close to it. That is not easy to accomplish. There's not many schools or grade levels within the state that are able to accomplish that right now. So they have a lot to celebrate. However, what does that mean for next year's 4th graders? Again, 50% of this model is built off of growth.
That's hard to get.
This group, this is where we're seeing some of those ebbs and flows. They don't have as much room to grow, and we'll go through that growth component here in just a second.
Yeah, so if they don't do better than that, which is spectacular, as fourth graders, we won't get very many growth points, and they may not get,
Right.
you may have seen an anomaly already, right? We've got 3 elementary schools, 2 of them were A's, 1 was a B. I hate that it distills down to a single letter.
Yeah.
But you're seeing that the B school is the one with the highest proficiency so far. It's crazy.
So is the state addressing that problem at all? Because there comes a point where if you have a proficiency of 80 or higher, it's pretty darn hard to get better the next year, statistically.
Right.
So does the state take that into account?
Not currently.
No.
No. The process is what it is. And again, here's where one of our constraints are for our K-4 schools, is we have the majority of this letter grade for our K-4 schools is built off of our fourth graders. Because again, 50% of that grade is growth. You don't have growth for your third graders because it's the first time they're taking this assessment. So again, here's one of the constraints to our configuration. Is it worth addressing? Maybe at some point. However, the state is currently going through the process of revamping the A to F process and the calculation and the formula of what that looks like. We don't know what that looks like yet. My guess is we probably won't know until after state assessment how we're going to be graded. So they're working on it currently, and we're trying to stay as with it as we possibly can.
Does that make sense? If you got a typical school with a K through 5 configuration or a K through 6 configuration, there's twice or 3 times as much opportunity to show growth in those grades. All of our growth points are in the fourth grade basket, so to speak. So if our fourth graders nail it compared to how they did the previous year, love it.
Yep.
If they don't, it comes out showing that the school is not, a great school with how it distills it down to a single letter. I don't like the system at all.
Right. Yeah, and if you have third graders who perform really well, it puts a lot of pressure on that fourth grade team. So here's our proficiency for math for 3rd through 8th grade for each of our schools. Again, we've got some grade levels here in the 80s or high 70s. Math has been an area that we have really focused on in the last few years, and we are seeing that growth. We are seeing our ELA scores dip a little bit, or not grow as much as we would like, and we are addressing that currently. But the other really exciting thing is that we're going through a math adoption right now for 3rd and 4th grade, so they will have some updated resources that will help them continue with the momentum that they have currently.
That's a huge improvement in 5 and 6, if I remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember how we did last year, but it's a big.
6th grade and 8th grade particularly were the 2 places that we showed the most growth.
Okay.
And I've got some exact numbers for you here in just a second to show you what that growth looked like.
I think also that, well, Lincoln School stands out to me, like the growth from 3rd to 4th at Lincoln in both of these subjects is pretty impressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They showed some great growth. And you'll see how that paid off for them when we break down their letter grade here in just a second. So growth. This is the really complicated calculation. So I want to remind you how this is calculated from the state. It is not just did the student improve in score from year to year. So again, this is one that's impossible for us to predict. We never know what this is going to be until the state gives us data, because they take into account every child within the state, and we don't have access to all of that data. So let's say for the prior year, all of the students in the state who scored a scale score of a 1050, they're lumped together in one group that following year. So they are one group, and they're only compared to each other, so whoever scored that same score. Oh, there we go. So the following year, they get a new score, and then what happens is they rank them in order. And once they do that, they then break it down and assign the category that has low growth, and then they assign points to that group, the one who has average growth, and they assign points to that group, and then high growth, they assign a different point value for that. And then they compile that together, and that's how we get a growth score for each student. So each student gets a 1 through a 3 based on where they fell within that cohort. So again, we can't predict this. We have no idea what's going to happen until we get this data from the state well after state assessment has happened. Questions over growth? Does this make sense?
What are these scores based on? Are they based on like our test scores or? Yeah, okay.
Yes. So this would be, say, their AASA score in math. And then if they do this separately for their ELA score.
Okay.
Good question. So EL proficiency and growth, this compiles 10% of the letter grade for K-8. In order to qualify for these points, you have to have 10 or more students in this category. So what you're going to see as we get into each school data, some of our schools don't qualify for EL points because they don't have 10 or more students who fell into that category in their school site.
You don't get the 10%.
Say that one more?
You don't get the 10%.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask
You
you,
don't have enough at each grade level.
Yeah.
can I ask a clarifying question?
Isn't that interesting?
So if you have a school like Abiyah that's got about 500 kids,
Yes.
and there are 11 of them that are English language learners,
Yes.
how they do on this test makes up 10% of that entire school's grade?
Yep.
That seems a little off to me.
Yes, and if they're, so those 11 students would compile 10% of the score. However, they're also calculated in multiple other areas as well.
So they actually end up counting for 15%-ish of an
Yes.
entire school's grade.
Yes.
If you have a huge cohort, this method probably makes some sense. If you have a very small cohort, this method makes no sense. And we tend
almost
to
a
have pretty
punishment.
small cohorts of EL students.
Yes.
Kind of like a punishment.
Well,
In a
if they
way.
do super well, it's a reward,
Yeah, but you
right?
have
They
to
have
have
an
10 or more.
outsized influence on our letter grades.
But
There's
you
no
have to have
question
more
about
than
that.
10, right.
Yes. And this data is not compiled from AASA data, which is the state assessment. It is actually compiled from the Azella assessment. This is something that EL students are required to take every year. And so it's based on their proficiency and growth within that assessment. So that assessment is really addressing whether they're proficient in the English language, and that's what they're looking for.
But they also show up, as you just mentioned, in our overall scores for how we did in math or English or whatnot, because they take those tests as well, whether they're English learners or not.
Yeah. So if you don't qualify for the EL points, it's not a punishment. You're actually calculated your final score out of 90 instead of out of 100. So there is no downside to not having this. Acceleration or readiness, this is an additional 10% of that overall score. There's a few different ways that this is calculated. The first one is looking at third grade minimally proficient percentage, and they just want to see, are you decreasing the number of students who are minimally proficient based on the cohort from the fall or the prior year. So if your number is decreasing your percentage, you get a bonus point for that. They're also looking at grade 8, highly proficient, for, that should say math, sorry. They want that highly proficient number in 8th grade math to increase. So if you're increasing from the prior year, you get points for that. They also want to look at 8th grade math. If you are minimally proficient category, the percentage of students is decreasing, so you're moving them towards proficiency, you get additional points there. So 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math are two of the most challenging subjects, and that is where students tend to struggle the most, and so they built these components in as an incentive to put some extra emphasis on those two subjects and grade levels. The other piece that they address is chronic absenteeism. So in order to qualify for these points, students can't miss more than 10% of the school year, which is 18 days. If you miss more than 18 days, you're considered chronically absent. But your percentage just has to continue decreasing from year to year. So as long as your percentage of chronic absenteeism is decreasing, you will get points in this category.
So all we got to do is convince the parents to get their kids out of bed and to school, never have them be sick, don't go on vacation, we get those points.
The next piece is the special education inclusion percentage. So they really want to make sure that you are getting students into the general education classroom as much as possible. And so as long as you are performing better than the state average, you get points here. This is a moving target that we, again, don't know until we get A to F data back. This is not something that we can track. So we don't have a hard target for, we've got to be under this percentage. We're guessing based off of where the prior year number was. And this has been around 11% of the school population. The interesting thing is what we're seeing across the state is the special education numbers are increasing in public schools. And so every year, that number continues to grow. So we're having to really watch what our percentages are. But again, we're not making decisions based off this number. We're still making decisions based on what's best for each individual child. If they need to be in special education, we provide them with those supports. If they don't, we try to get them into the gen ed classroom and off of an IEP as quickly as we possibly can.
So I see you're not playing games.
No.
You're not trying to move a special ed kid into gen ed when they shouldn't be there, because you
Absolutely
get
not.
extra brownie points.
Thank you.
It would help us if we did things like
Yeah,
that.
we
In
would
terms
get
of this,
points.
there's an incentive to kind of play the system, but you're exactly
we're
right.
not doing that.
We never do that. We look at what's best for kids.
Yeah, and we're really fortunate that our entire leadership team is on that same page. We understand that doing what's best for students day in and day out is a little more important than that letter grade that we see. Is it important? Absolutely. Do we take it seriously? Absolutely. But we're not willing to do things like that when it comes to kids. So the last piece for acceleration and readiness is subgroup improvement. Now this takes all different subgroups from ethnicity to special education to EL students, and if those subgroups are improving from year to year, then you get additional points for each of those in ELA and math. And again, that's an area where we're choosing not to single out specific groups of students in order to get points here. We are looking at each student individually and growing each one based on where they're at. There are bonus points in K-8. They can earn up to 5 additional bonus points. Now, the really nice piece about bonus points is these are added as whole points onto your percentage at the end. So they get you a little extra bang for your buck. The 2 ways to get those are special education. Basically, again, this is how the state compares to your total percentage, not just in the general education classroom, but how many students on your campus are part of special education. And again, it just compares you to the state. And then the second piece is science proficiency points based on how well students did on the science assessment. Here's an area that does hurt our K-4 schools. They're not even eligible for these points because these assessments are only given in 5, 8, and 11th grade. And again, it's only 2.5 points, but you'll see some of our schools are pretty close to that mark where that 2.5 points could make a big difference for them at some point. So that's how it's created. What I'll show you next is just being able to compare each of the different components from school to school. Now, when you look at the proficiency and stability proficiency, I don't have data for you on the stability proficiency tonight because that's a pretty complicated measure. However, that is the data that we talked about earlier that shows how students do the longer they've been with us. And again, we're pretty strong in that category. The longer students are with us, the more successful that they are. But you can see here that proficiency is not necessarily the indicator of a letter grade. And that's because it's only 30% of that overall. And what you see here for proficiency, like for Abaya Judd, they got a 21.47. That is not the percentage or the number of students who are proficient. That's just the number of points that they've earned. It is different. So it doesn't calculate that actual proficiency percentage. You can also see for growth, we had Lincoln for the 2nd year in a row earned 100% of their growth points. And that is what has made the difference for them. It's how they've been able to maintain being an A school.
That's pretty spectacular.
It's spectacular.
If you look down the state data, there's not too many schools in that same situation.
No, it's a really hard thing to do once you get an A to maintain that A within this current system. You will see for EL proficiency and growth that both Lincoln and Mile High did not qualify, but the 3 schools that did qualify almost earned all of their points, which tells us that the EL instruction that we are providing students is helping them to become more proficient English language learners. And then next I'll show you each individual school and highlight some of their celebrations for this year. So this is Abaya Judd. Abaya Judd went from a C letter grade to a B letter grade. They had pretty substantial improvement, and some of the areas that they did grow were in their growth score. They went down a tiny bit in that proficiency level, but again, I expect that to look entirely different this upcoming year based on the data that we are seeing currently. But they did grow, and that's because they were able to also decrease the number of 3rd graders who were in that minimally proficient category by 16%. That's not a small number. That's a pretty big number when it comes to decreasing that number of percentage of students, especially because there's not a ton of students in that cohort that they're looking at. They decreased chronic absenteeism by 4%, and then they were also able to have subgroups improve pretty substantially in English language arts, and that's how they were able to go from that C to that B this year. Lincoln Elementary School stayed at an A school. Again, not easy to do. What you can see is they did have a dip in proficiency. This ties directly to, Jane, what you were saying just a second ago. You had high-performing third graders. That growth score is only fourth graders. They just dipped a tiny bit. However, their growth score means what they're doing for kids within each cohort, they're performing better than kids in that same cohort across the state. And so maximizing that 2 years in a row is pretty miraculous. But that right there is exactly why they have an A letter grade. And other than that small dip in proficiency, they stayed exactly where they were almost last year. So sorry, let me highlight these other two pieces. But fourth graders had a 17.73 increase in proficiency from third grade. So again, that's huge growth numbers from a group who was already scoring pretty high. And then for math, it was a 3.78 increase, and then a decrease in chronic absenteeism by 3%. Next, we have Taylor Hicks. They had quite a bit of growth as well. They last year were the heartbreak story because they missed an A by 0.6 of a point. They were so close. We dug through every piece of data that we could to see if maybe there was one thing that was off, and we couldn't find anything, but they missed it by just a hair. So they did a lot of proactive things to improve scores, and you can see here they had great proficiency. They had increase in growth, and that came from really that fourth grade group. They increased their ELA proficiency by about 7.4%. So again, when you compare and you look back at Lincoln, and they increased by 17%, it tells you how big of a jump those Lincoln kiddos had. They decreased the number of third graders who were minimally proficient by 2%. They decreased chronic absenteeism by 3%, and then they really targeted math instruction, and they were able to see all students improve, but they were able to see those subgroups improve enough to earn some of these extra points. Next, we have Granite Mountain, and again, they did a lot to address their letter grade as well, and they are continuing to be a B school. They scored very similar to where they were last year. I expect this to look different next year as well. Their data coming back is so far pretty strong, and we're seeing some really good things as far as that proficiency number increasing, but we did see that grow last year. We also saw, great celebration here is that sixth graders, there were almost 71% who were proficient in math. Yeah. So I can tell you Ms. Tetra is really excited about that, to get that group of seventh graders in this year, and they're seeing kids come in with good skills for seventh grade math. They earned 100% of the points possible for EL growth and proficiency, which is great because they didn't even have anything to compare to last year. So the students that they do have in that cohort, obviously that instruction is being effective. So they did see a good jump in scores from year to year, and most of that is based off of that EL growth number, which is a little misleading because last year it was out of 90, this year it's out of 100, but overall percentage, they did increase by just about 1%.
What about chronic absenteeism with Granite?
So if I didn't highlight it, it means it probably didn't decrease, which means they might not have gotten percentage.
But might have stayed the same. Okay.
And then Mile High. This is the school that, honestly, I'm most proud of and how they responded to a rough year. I mean, they had a D letter grade the year before, and they had, we had a lot of change within our district last year. They had the most. They took that letter grade and they said, not again. This is not happening. We're not okay with that. We are better than that. Our kids are better than that. That's not going to be who we are, and they're not going to let that define them. So not only did they do all the instructional things that we just talked about, but they also revamped their entire master schedule. They created semester-based classes. They did things like the speaking and listening class, which is great. And it paid off for them, right? They are really proud of what they did. So they had a big jump in proficiency. Again, it's not where they want that number to be. They're continuing to move that. But again, as Mr. Neely said, this is not just a Mile High data concern, right? That those skills start being developed in elementary school through Granite Mountain. So we are addressing all of that system-wide to continue to see that trickle up all the way through the high school. One of the things that they really looked at was those acceleration and readiness. They went from scoring 0 points to getting all 10. And the thing about acceleration and readiness points is there's not just 10 points available, there's actually like 24 points available in this category, but it caps you out at 10. They would have gotten most of those 24 if they were allowed to get them, but it capped them out here. So they really responded in that category as well. So 8th graders overall had a 5.21 increase in math proficiency. Again, 8th grade math is probably our biggest area of need. It is one of the most challenging across the state as far as scores and outcomes, and so we're starting to see that needle move, which is really exciting. And that data honestly looks even better this year. So we've got the right teachers in the right places with the right curriculum. They're cruising. They also doubled the number of students who are highly proficient in math. Again, that is no easy task. That is the most struggling cohort or course, and they doubled the number of students in that highly proficient category, and then decreased the number of students who are minimally proficient by 14%, which means they're moving the direction that we want them to go. They're moving towards proficiency or highly proficient. They also addressed chronic absenteeism, and that number decreased, and then they had substantial improvements for subgroups in both ELA and math, and then maxed out those points and beyond if they could have. So they have a lot to celebrate. They're very proud. They've done a ton of work, and what's most exciting is a lot of that was teacher-directed change and momentum. So next is
Kelsey, can I ask a question really quick before we move on to 9 through 12, which is stellar? If I'm a community member hearing this, I might be surprised by how much of this, a letter grade that's supposed to define an entire school with a single letter of the alphabet, how much of it is based on a snapshot from one day of testing in the spring. I mean, it seems like virtually everything, right? With the exception of a couple of potential bonus points for reducing chronic absenteeism and how many special education kids you have in certain classes. Literally everything else is from one day snapshot of this. How much of it, if I'm a typical community member and I see a single, shorthand B or an A or a D or whatever for a school, I might expect there'd be things like maybe support for families, how that looks at the school, or the school culture, or the variety of programs, or the quality of programs, or safety, or parent satisfaction. How much do those things factor into these letter grades?
0.
Okay, does that seem curious to you at all, that that's the system we have in Arizona?
Yes, and this is part of why, again, this is a data point, but it's not what we invest most of our time and energy into, right? We're looking at moving every single student and helping them grow and reach proficiency, but we know that that's more than one day in time, right? All of those things that you heard about earlier, from sports to extracurricular activities to the school culture, those have a huge impact on overall success and performance and student achievement. It doesn't take into account students who might know the content but aren't great test takers. So there's lots of different pieces that create a positive school, and this does not accurately reflect them, but it's one point of data.
I think that's super well said. I think we have a lot to be proud of how our 4th graders tested in math on April 18th last year.
Right.
That's super cool. It's great. I love it. I'm proud of that for sure. I'm really proud of our test scores and what our kids showed as far as academic achievement that day. But man, there's so much more to it. And a system that distills everything that 500 kids and 40 teachers do out of 180 days of the year, and a bunch of great PTO moms and everything else down to one letter of the alphabet. I have a hard time getting my head around that.
Agreed. So next we have our 9-12 model. This is configured a little bit different just because of the different expectations placed on a high school environment. So in this case, 30% of that score is based off proficiency. Again, 10% is off of English language learners if you qualify for that. 20% is based off of graduation rates. Only 20% is based off of growth, which is a pretty big difference from the K-8 model, which is 50%. And then college and career readiness, which is 20%. So here's how our high school performed last year. I'm going to do a quick overview of this, but you can see they were solidly in that A category. The cutoff is 82 to 100 is an A, and they're sitting at in the 90s, which is a huge success for our high school folks. But really where the magic comes is comparing to how they did the year prior. Again, they were one of our 2 schools who was able to maintain an A from year to year. And even within that, they had a lot of really substantial growth, again, which is not easy to do. So they increased in overall proficiency. So their ELA proficiency increased by 7.68%. Now let me also clarify. This is not a representative of all of our high school students. I should say that first. This is based off of some data from our 9th graders who take ACT Aspire. The majority of this is based off of ACT that our 11th graders take. So this is data for those 2 cohorts. It doesn't take into account our 10th graders or our 12th graders except for graduation rates and the college and career readiness. So the majority of proficiency and growth is based off of 11th graders taking these assessments.
Kelsey, we have every 11th grader take the ACT. Does everyone have to do that now in Arizona?
Yes.
Every 11th grader has to take it?
It is our state assessment, so yes, they're required to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's different. It used to be optional. It used to be just for those college-bound students, but not anymore.
Is that charter schools, private schools?
Charter schools, yes. Private schools,
No.
no.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. So they had a small dip in growth. However, when you see proficiency increase like that, that's exactly what you want to see. They did increase their EL proficiency and growth numbers, and they were also able to increase their college and career self-reporting score. And I'll tell you how much of a hero Mr. Neely is with that data here in just a second. But again, within having an A to increase to their A again this year was a pretty big accomplishment.
But then if we're looking at doing that again this coming year, it starts
So-
to get tricky. I mean, it gets to the point where you can't statistically get me higher.
Can I ask another leading question?
Yes.
So it's obviously very hard to get A's, right? We've been talking about that all night. Of the large high schools in Yavapai County, so the PHS is the third of the last 4 years that they've had an A, and they barely missed an A
yes,
3 years ago, right? How many other large high schools in Yavapai County have ever received a grade of A? Do you know the answer to that? I think I might. We got it. Zero.
Yeah. The only high school in Yavapai County with an A.
It is super hard, and PHS is nailing it. 3 out of the last 4 years, including the last 2 years in a row. They've got a lot to be proud of here.
And not even just barely an A. I mean, solidly an A. They're really strong as far as their overall score.
There's a lot of good education going on across the county. I don't mean to suggest our neighbors are not doing
Absolutely
something
not.
great. They are. They've got good kids and good teachers doing good things. PHS is just special.
Correct. 100% agree. The other big celebration in here that you'll see is the last 2 years, they've completely maxed out graduation rate points, which means they're doing exactly what they need to get as many students to graduation as they possibly can. We've got some additional data to share about that here in just a second. So graduation rates, this is a confusing data point. I know you see 4, 5, 6, and 7. Sometimes we do have students who take longer than 4 years to graduate. There's a variety of reasons for that, but they do get different point breakdowns based on how many years it did take for them to reach graduation. But again, we are at the high school, they're getting kids to graduation a lot of the time on time, and if not on time, they're getting them there, which means and goes a lot. What you will see here, the overall graduation rate, that is not the same as the graduation rate that the high school uses and calculates. And that's because of all of this different weighting and the breakdown that you see here. So if you were to look at actual graduation numbers in cohorts, it's actually higher. And then the college and career readiness data, this is data that Prescott High School has to self-report. So poor Mr. Neely spends weeks, and I'm not kidding, weeks over the summer compiling all of this data. If he wasn't as good at spreadsheets as he is, I can't even imagine how long it would actually take him. And he has learned this system so well that every year this data continues to get better and better and better. So you can see that it has to report on everything from ACT scores to how many families are filling out the FAFSA. Are they meeting benchmarks for the ASVAB? Are they completing CTE courses? Tons of data that Mr. Neely has to compile in order to get these points. And it's worth it, but it's a ton of work on his part.
We hired him for all kinds of other reasons. It's just icing on the cake that he happens to be the former math department chair and nails this to the wall every year.
Yeah, I think he got roped into this before he was principal too. He's been doing this for some years. Yeah, which is too many, right? Yeah.
Kelsey, can you go back to that one? So
Yes.
a lot of these aren't either or, it's just, so if somebody does the FAFSA, obviously someone's going off to, post high school education, and then CTE, I mean, you're kind of doing either or, but what if they do both? I mean, is it you checks a block? Wow.
Yeah, the system is built that the ideal number is a kid who does high academics and CTE. Those are the maxed out points that you can get for each child.
Wow. Thanks.
Or some version of career executive.
Right.
Where it says they passed a college 100 level CTE pathway course or other college type credit, do you add up how many credits they received? And is there additional points for that, or if they passed one, it's the same as if they passed 8?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
There's there's a limit on each one, so you can get a certain number of points in each one of these categories that she could show. But like CTE college courses, I think is maxed out at 3 or 4, depending on what it is. So
Gotcha.
if they took, if they ended up getting 12 different credits completed, they're going to stop at that number.
So our kids who are in early college, like for instance, that's what they're earning all year, it's limited still. And when you're doing the calculation, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes. This is complicated. I'm really glad this part is not my job. It's a lot of work. So the high school can also earn these bonus points, and again, these are tacked on as whole points to your percentage, your final percentage. So again, same for special education bonus points comparison to the rest of the state. Science proficiency points for those 11th graders who are taking the AZ Sci, and then also you get bonus points for students completing the ACT Aspire as a 9th grader. Let me go back because as you can see from 24 to 25, and I didn't highlight this and I should have, but those bonus points have increased for them. So, yeah, they got 3 additional points this year added onto their percentage, which is a big deal. And then we have the alternative model. So this is for our Genesis students in that program, and this is our dropout recovery. This is our really kind of our last effort to get kids to graduation. And their data is assessed very differently. So 15% is proficiency, 10% is based on our EL students, 10% is on graduation, 30% is on growth to graduation, and then that 35% is that college and career readiness, similar to what you saw for Prescott High School. I will tell you, I could not be more proud of what the Genesis program is currently doing. You can see here from their data, they don't qualify for a proficiency score. Now, again, that doesn't hurt them because it's not part of their overall calculation, but they have to have more than 10 students in that category. Now, Genesis is mainly 12th graders, and this is based off of the 11th grade ACT assessment. That's why you don't see that data here. However, you can see in all these other areas, they're doing really, really great things. When you compare to the prior year, they're almost maxed out in academic persistence. They've grown in credits earned. They've maxed out and on track to graduate. Their graduation rate's improving. Their college and career self-report data is improving. I mean, their overall score has improved. So for them to be a B school is really, really impressive. But I think what's most impressive is the support that they have implemented that they're offering Genesis students. So increased communication, especially the closer they get to that graduation target, and also the amount of supports that they've built in for those students. They were able to graduate 45 students last year. So they graduated half of the students that were in their program. Mr. Neely, have you ever seen that many students graduate from Genesis in 1 year?
Not even close.
Not even close.
And we've had a lot of work done in Genesis, but that is the highest I've ever seen.
So they have a ton to celebrate. These are kids that in any other place might not have ever made it to graduation, and 45 students. So that, to me, gives me goosebumps, and it says, we're in this for the right reasons. We're moving kids and helping them to get to that finish line for those who are willing to put in some of that work.
Kelsey, do you know how that number, like, does the accommodation school at YCESA, are they rated the same way?
You know what? I'm not sure. Do you know that? The accommodation school?
I don't know the answer. I would assume yes, but I don't know the answer. We can find out.
I can find out. Yeah,
I'd
I'm
be
not
curious
sure.
how we compare, because
they're-
not a totally similar population, but somewhat similar. I mean,
Sure.
kids that are at risk and
Yep.
finding another alternative way to learn. So
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not entirely sure, but I can find out for you.
Nice.
So as we look at all of our assessment data, it's always good to get some comparisons to where do we fall based on where our peers are at, based on where the state is at. One of the really exciting things is we typically outperform when we're looking at fully proficient and highly proficient. That's what this number is. The schools around us, we're almost always above the state in these proficiency levels. And some of them, we're above in quite a few areas. So again, we are outperforming our peers in a lot of areas. There are definitely areas that we continue to track and work on, and we're putting more resources and more time into that, but we are seeing a lot of success across the board. Same thing is true in math. Math is the area that across the state, I think we have the most work to do. And districts around are in that same boat, but again, we're either right at where our peers are or we're outperforming them by quite a bit. One of the pieces that I think here, when you look at our proficient, highly proficient from last year, one of the big celebrations is that 6th grade proficiency number. They were at 51%, were either proficient or highly proficient, and the state was only at 30. So we are outperforming them by quite a bit. Those teachers did an amazing job. And overall, I mean, we are a top performing district. Letter grades or not. When you look at where we stand for ELA, we are in the top 17% of schools in the state. When you look at math, even though we've got some work to do, we're in the top 19% of schools in the state. So when people say we're failing and our kids aren't doing what they need to, I disagree. I think within our system that does have some flaws, there's some work to do. We're not going to stop. I think there's also some work that needs to be done looking at these systems as well. And there is starting to be some conversation around that. I'm not sure how much traction that's going to get, but I do think that that's a part of this puzzle as well. So action steps. I'll go through these quickly. I know I've been talking for a long time. We are continuing a lot of the action steps that we put into place last year. We are standards-aligned instruction. We continue to refine our pacing guides, and that is teacher-driven. We are not doing that for teachers. Teachers are the expert in their content, in their field. They are deciding what is most important. The thing that is different with pacing from last year is the state has decided for 3rd through 8th grade that they're going to identify essential standards that will be tested at a different frequency on state assessment. So there'll be more questions on those standards on the assessment. So we looked very closely at what are those essential standards and where do they fit and how much time are we putting on tracking how students are doing on those, because they will be assessed more frequently. We're continuing with common formative assessments. Here, one of the things that's different from what the state does is our state assessment is 1 day, 1 time. Our CFAs, or common formative assessments, are not. These are 5-question quick checks that students are taking. They have the one opportunity. If they don't show proficiency on that, they have another opportunity after some additional instruction, and then they have a benchmark later to see if they've retained that information. Professional development, we continue to focus on the professional learning communities. Really, all that is collaboration. We want teachers looking at data. We want them creating action plans together. We want them learning from each other. And you can see that that's happening. When you just saw what Mile High was doing, they're truly looking at students as their all of their students. And this is what has changed that for them. When they're focusing on these 4 questions every single Friday afternoon, you know, what do we want students to learn? What do we do if they have learned it? Or, sorry, how will we know if they've learned it first? What do we do if they haven't learned it? And what do we do if they have? So again, it's making sure that expectations are clear and that we're meeting every learner right where they're at and continuing a plan for them so they continue to grow. We're also focusing on the new classroom instruction that works. This is something that you've probably heard a few times within our district. We have used classroom instruction that works, or CITW is what we typically call it for short. That is our instructional model. It's what our teacher evaluation tool is based off of. Well, a couple years ago, they came out with the new version, so updated. The big game changer here is they really focused on brain science first and foremost. How do we as humans learn? Now let's take that information and figure out how to put instructional strategies to that in order to help students not only grasp information, but retain that long term. So we have started this year with brain science for all of our staff. What is that? What does science tell us about how the brain works? And then now we're in the initial stages of, now what are those instructional strategies that we can use in the classroom to support that? It does go hand in hand with instruction, or with standards-based instruction. So how do you take one content area and get students to really master that? That's how those two are woven together. So the 6 phases of learning, those are those instructional strategies. That's what we're right in the middle of right now. So next Monday, our teachers will be learning about phases 3 and 4, and then we'll work on phases 5 and 6 later in the school year. We're continuing to focus on math instruction. So K4 is looking at new math curriculum. My hope is to, in this early spring, bring you a potential proposed or potential curriculum. We're continuing to train our 9th through 12th teachers in the new math curriculum that they got this year, which was our Envision curriculum. And then we're in year 2 with iReady for grades 5 through 8. So continuing to support them. They actually started the year with some more in-depth PD on how do you use the data within iReady to really support teachers, or to support students, sorry. And then we are continuing with a math stipend for 5th through 8th grade math teachers. So again, that has been our most challenging grade band and where we have the most room to grow. And again, it's not just a PUSD problem, this is across the state. Those are the areas, but really focusing on professional development, really focusing on them learning from each other. One of the, I think, most successful pieces that has come out of that, I'm sure you saw in the Mile High video, there were students standing up at the board working together in groups. So they have done professional development from, it's called Building Thinking Classrooms, where you're empowering students to be those problem solvers. It's no longer just sit and do 15 math problems to show that you're proficient. It's how are you working together to strategize how to solve a math problem. Kids love it. Teachers love it once they get into it. Some teachers are a little nervous at the start because sometimes it can seem like a little controlled chaos. But once you start listening to what's happening, kids are talking about math and they're really thinking about how the concepts that they're learning interact with each other and how they can use those to solve real world problems. So it's pretty exciting. If you're able to ever see one of those lessons, I would highly encourage it. They're also doing a lot of coaching support with that, and those peer observations are embedded in that. So they'll go and watch another teacher and they'll have a coach right with them who will be talking about, okay, here's what that teacher's doing. What do you notice this teacher's doing? What do you see students doing? And we are seeing really good results, primarily at the 7th and 8th grade level with this math stipend work. We're continuing to focus on engagement, making sure that all students are engaged every class period, all day long. We want them not checked out or doing other things. We want them really invested in what they're learning. Continuing to address chronic absenteeism. We know that students perform better if they're in school consistently. And those are our big, just a few of the action steps. I could go on, but those are some of what we're doing to highlight just the A to F scores. I threw a lot of information at you, sorry.
That was good. Really
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Kelsey, I just have a few questions, just want to.
Yes.
So So how many years have we been evaluating this criteria specifically? As, that's been kind of this standard?
The A through F criteria? is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Like where did it stick? How many years would you say?
So that's a little bit of a challenging question, only because we were doing this pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It had come out, this structure, I want to say 2017, maybe 2018.
But it changed a few times or no?
Well, they kind of took a pause
Okay.
during COVID years when we didn't have an assessment one year, and then they didn't give the assessment, or we didn't have data the following year. So there's
Okay.
been some gaps in it. I will tell you, it wasn't until maybe 3 years ago that I felt like, okay, we've got a good grasp of this. Again, it's so complicated. The business rules are about this thick for each of these different criteria in order to figure out. So it takes a long time. I felt like I was studying for a statistics course or something like that in order to really get that figured out.
And you're saying that it's going to change again?
Yes.
Okay. And who's doing that? Is it the State Board of Education?
Yes, State Board of Education. Well, they're the ones who approve it, I guess I should say. So there is a group of professionals with ADE who are working on a proposal for the system, but the State Board is the one who approves it.
Okay. And then who's evaluated? Public, charter?
Yes.
And that's it?
That's it.
And are they published? Are they posted publicly?
Yes.
For public and charter?
Yes.
Okay, that's my answer. Okay.
Yes, so those are on ADE websites. I've actually seen them on different news outlets as well that post a link to that spreadsheet that you can look at.
Okay, thanks.
In regards to the high school and how we get graded, is it based on, for example, if someone decided to take the SAT, is it based on those scores as well, or mostly just ACT scores?
So SAT is part of the CCRI data, the stuff that Mr. Neely has to submit, but the proficiency and growth is all based off of the ACT scores.
Why is that? Does it not take into account grade point average or things like that?
So that's just a part of the different data points that have to be reported on. That's where you get that 20%. But because Arizona has approved the ACT to be the 11th grade assessment for our state, it's based off of that data. So the other data is just a small portion compared to ACT.
Okay.
Good question.
Anything else? All right, guys, we've been going for 2 hours strong here. Okay.
Can I make a 10-second comment?
Yeah, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break.
I love that.
Okay.
There's a lot to be proud of here. Hopefully you're proud of what you saw there. Every school is doing great things. There's something that all of this work has in common, and she's standing there at that podium right there. I can't think of a better person to be leading this work than Kelsey Secor. Thanks, Kelsey. Appreciate you.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Mr. Tenney.
Okay, 20 minutes or less on this, I promise. No, so we had our Sip and Savor recently. Jane was there, Jen was there. It was terrific, and they brought in over $100,000 this year. Terrific. You can share more about it. That's the first question, or the first set of slides. Our food service folks did a canned food drive, particularly timely given what's going on the federal level and people losing SNAP benefits and whatnot. But what was the total? Sarah's got it here. 1,131 pounds of non-perishable food items. And Taylor Hicks had the most, 381 pounds.
Yes, they got
Next. Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. The food service folks made, and they had a little barter system with them. Just this last week, Prescott Area Business Awards, they always have an Educator of the Year, and this year the Educator of the Year was our Taylor Hicks principal, Mr. Kevin Hilton. Hey. So that was fantastic. Those guys arm wrestled afterwards.
Yeah.
So there was that. What do we got next? Oh, trick-or-treating. So our Discovery Gardens kids come through the district office every year. It was super cute. And a lot of our staff members will also dress up in kind of theme things. And it was super cute. Oh, there's Lincoln does a pumpkin carving contest every year. And Sarah, Kelsey, did you go over as well? Sarah and Kelsey went over, and they were two of our distinguished panel of judges over there. Yep.
It was.
Everybody won, and everybody was happy. The Lincoln Parade, Stan will probably touch on this more. We've got some great photos of that, and there was a cool theme. We had Cruella de Vil leading all of the different teachers dressed up as her 101 Dalmatians. So that was a fun.
Impressed she walked to those shoes for that long. Crazy.
Our Discovery Gardens folks also saw this federal government issue coming with SNAP payments not being fully available to people, and so they just reached out to families and teachers and said, "Hey, would you help out? Could we get a little food cupboard going?" And that's what they pulled in one day. My wife brought a handful of things, and they got a bunch of their people in their community said, "Hey, there's other people not as fortunate as me, and there's usually a safety net there for them that's not there right now. I want to step up." So super cool. I think that's it. That's it.
That was pretty good.
Was that less than 20 minutes?
Well done. All right.
Can you just mention the audit result because it's a tribute to?
I should. Do you have a picture? I don't say stuff unless there's a picture. Go ahead, please.
Just last week, our the Heinfield and Meach, our independent audit team, did their second visit. They always do one in August and one in October, and the totality of the audit is what gets presented in front of you. And so this year, we ended up with only 7 findings, which single digits is. I can't remember. We've been in single digits. I think
it might have been the same.
5 years. Like 5 years in a row, we've been in single digits, which is kind of that.
According to the, I mean, I have to say that, according to the auditors, that's unheard of. They don't deal with anybody else who consistently is in the single digits for. There's thousands of rules we have to follow, over tens of thousands of transactions, and they found 7 places where it wasn't perfect.
So I just want to mention, just because it's a celebration of really everybody when it comes to all the rules and regulations. And so just another tribute to how Prescott Unified, does exemplary work from every level.
That's great. Super cool.
Well done. Good job, Brian.
Again.
No, not me, everybody.
I know. You never take the credit. That's right.
All right. That's true. We should have touched on it there. Yeah, the auditors dressed up in Halloween costumes with us.
Good. All right, moving on to item 6A2, governing board members. Brett.
Yes, thank you. I went on a school tour on October 15th with Mr. Tenney, and we went to Granite Mountain Upper Elementary School, and it was fantastic. I came away from there with a greater understanding of the culture of the Granite Mountain Upper Elementary, which we spent a lot of time in the SPED program, and it just touched my heart that we are focused on every child every day. Doesn't matter their background, doesn't matter their capability, their capacity, their potential. We will design a curriculum for them. And loved that. There's a lot of creativity and flexibility going on all around the school there, and there was definitely a can-do attitude. I loved how they were striving to be better every day. So that was a summary of my school tour there. And then on the 30th, October 30th, I went to lunch with Mr. Freyer and Judge Carmen and Mr. Tenney, and we talked about bond and override, and I left there going, holy cow, that's a lot of work. But with a determination that this is what is best for our community, best for our kids, and it's worth the effort. But it's going to take a lot of coordinating, a lot of different parts of our community to unify together and to make this happen for our kids.
Yes, sir. Great. Yeah, Jen.
I was able to go to the Sip and Savor. We just met, right? Like, I feel like I didn't do very much, but I don't feel like we met that long ago.
We did. Yeah,
I was at the Sip and Savor, and I can't believe it's our 10th annual Sip and Savor. That is crazy that it's been 10 years, and it's one of my all-time favorite things to do. So I try never, ever to miss it, and I'm super proud of what the foundation is doing for the schools. And that's really all I did.
Yeah,
I mean, I have also been able to have some meetings regarding our bond and override and getting some community input there, which has been really helpful.
Excellent. Andy.
Real quick, I attended flag football against Flagstaff, which was a super exciting game to watch.
Comeback, wasn't it?
Yeah, they won with 22 seconds left on the clock and scored a touchdown to win. It was amazing. So really proud of what they're doing. Did the walkthrough with Mr. Neely and with Mr. Tenney. Things that stuck out to me, the culture at PHS, the number of options that they've had, and we talked a lot about the AP scores and the ACT scores and the improvements there. It was just really refreshing, you know. I attended the NHS induction ceremony last week and want to shout out Shay, who was inducted into NHS at that. Congratulations. Along with about 30 other students. Really nice ceremony, really good to watch. Attended Mile High and toured ESS with Maya Caldwell. Again, saw a lot of what our presenters were talking about with the peer program at Mile High, which is amazing. You know, seeing 7th and 8th grade students working with the students in the ESS program. That really stuck out to me. I was also able to attend at least a portion of it. I kind of go incognito, so I wear a hat and sunglasses, but I watch the Lincoln Halloween parade because it's so cute. It was so much fun. So, but I was there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jane.
I spaced the ceremony. I completely spaced it, so I'm coming to your meeting on Friday.
Okay.
So I'm going to the National Honor Society meeting on Friday since I totally spaced it. I went to, with Clark, we went to AJ, walked the halls that I know so well, and it's still just as exciting place to be as ever. And our student enrollment count's going up at AJ since fall break, 10 students, which is awesome. I got to go to Discovery Gardens with my guitar and sing with the babies, which was the highlight of my month. So I'm going to go about once a month and we do all those little songs that Five Green and Speckled Frogs, all of that stuff. That was very fun. I went to a budget meeting at Discovery Gardens as well with what's happening with Brian was there and Andy was there and Clark was there about numbers this year and how that might affect what's going on. And I think they know exactly what they're doing there and not too worried about that. And last but not least, the teachers, I don't know if you know this, but United Way gave the Teachers Closet $5,000 this year to buy more supplies for kids, which that's a lot. We didn't think we would get anything from them. We turned out we were very organized. That's why we got it. Like they knew where every penny was going to go by the way the room looked, as opposed to just a chaotic mess. It's pretty well organized. So I had a lot of teachers there last week, 35, 40 teachers there last week, and that's good for me. Go ahead.
Awesome.
That was plenty for me.
I also did a visit. Mine was to Lincoln, so with Miss Prusso and Clark, and I echo what Brett said, that we went to every classroom, and it doesn't matter. The rigor, the structure, the teachers did not stop when we went through. I don't know if you guys got that too.
Yeah.
And it was like
Not at all.
those kids were engaged. We had first, second graders sitting in rows and just what they were reading and saying. It was unbelievable. And this is from like a first or second year teacher that I mean just always impressed. But I also kind of was able to piggyback, because a week before I was able to do my parent-teacher conference at Lincoln, right? And really see the cognitive formative assessments in action, and the way that the grades are. And as a parent seeing what their scores were, or what they, well, I guess their grades were, and then the reteach. And kids are talking about reteach. And it's not you're reteaching if you do well, you're reteaching if you don't do as well. They don't know the difference. It's unbelievable how the breakout is. And the kids are just, it's part of it, So very, very well done there. And learned that Ms. Baruso is actually working on Lincoln School to be a letter A school. What is that called?
A+ school.
A+ school of excellence.
It's a big
It's
process.
a lot of work, right? And so she's doing a lion's share of it. That was pun intended, Lincoln Lions and all. So, was able to do the flag football game, and I tell you, Lucy was the difference in that second half. So I'm not kidding. She was unbelievable. She was the spy on defense. It was unbelievable. Then went into the volleyball game, so it was just like a circus. We were just able to go from one to the other. And then the next night, watch our football team on Channel 7, state televised. And the one thing that stood out was just how they captured the tradition of Prescott and Prescott High School and the kids, and same thing as we were doing in high school, they're doing it better. I mean, it's magnified. It's just, they captured community, and it was cool to see that sitting in your living room, so it was just an amazing deal. Then also went to the Halloween walk around, and I just love all the costumes and the kids and everything else, so that was amazing. And then just as a precursor, and I think we have a little video here, but this morning I went to, so it's Veterans Day next week, and I just want to highlight what we're teaching our kids and what we know. And you can see this is a presentation this morning that I went to for the first graders, and this was put on by the teachers. And then just to see it as we visit the schools, to see how this resonates with every level that we go to. So for Veterans Day, all the events that are at the schools, the letters that are written to veterans, to the VA, our high school students, this how reverent they are with the national anthem and at ball games. It's just, we're in a unique spot, and Prescott teaches our kids right. And so this is just one example, if I may. That's young Galagoski on the corner reading the screen. So he needed words, but I mean, think of it. God bless the USA, sung in our public schools. I just want our community to know that these are our kids, and we're doing a tremendous job of raising them right. So thank you.
Okay, so speaking of tradition, I was a Lincoln Lion. I can envision sitting on that blacktop at a flag ceremony singing this song. So
right?
Thank you. You should probably back.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks, Kelsey. Okay, so item 6A3, Governing Board Representatives. So Shay, you got the whole floor.
All right, so Missy Townsend did steal some of my points. Yes, there was a big football game, Bradshaw game. That was kind of a tough loss. It was a little bit of a hard watch for me, but that's okay. We're also having D2 state for swim on Friday and Saturday. Friday is prelims and Saturday is sectionals. And last Saturday, we also had a 2-day meet, Friday and Saturday, which was prelims and sectionals again. And our team did amazing. I think we had about 8 swimmers go into finals, and all of our relays made it to finals. They did a great job. I think that the majority of people, our relay actually, I forgot about this, the 4x100 relay, which for those who don't know, that means that each swimmer does 4 lengths, so 4 back and forths kind of thing. And that got, I think for the girls, I believe it ranked number 3, so we got a medal out of that, so that was awesome. Last week I did a whole bunch. On Wednesday, I was able to go to Lincoln Elementary School for kindergarten for MAPFORCE, and if you don't know what MAPFORCE is, it is peer-to-peer drug prevention program, and we got to talk to kindergartners, and that was awesome. I don't remember what class it was, but it was just awesome to see all the kids and just see how great they had responded to us being there. Today, actually, for Interact Club, which for those who don't know, it's a service project club that is based on doing community service throughout the community. We went to Las Fuentes Retirement Home, and we handed out retirement cards, fall cards that we made at our last meeting, which was a couple weeks ago. We also recently had an S Club service project, which I'm sure you guys remember what S Club is, but if you don't, it is a division of Sir Optimus International, so it's an all-women's organization that is focused on service-based community projects. We went to Evergreen Village, which is also the place that I work and where my great-grandfather lives, and we were able to sit down and spend a couple hours with the residents painting pumpkins for Halloween, and we also colored a couple pictures, and they came up to me. I worked on Monday, and they all were super excited about it and were telling me how much they loved it and just how great of a time they had. We also had trunk or treat on Thursday. I'm not sure if any of you came, but it was amazing. I saw such great floats. S Club had an awesome float. I'm a little biased, but I think it turned out amazing. I personally believe it was the best float out there. We had all of these colored pumpkins on Miss Chartier's car, and it was just amazing. Yeah, it's been a really great month.
Oh, that's great. Great report. All right. Item 6B, community comments. Share with the governing board. Brett?
I might have missed an email or two, but I didn't see any emails come through from the community. I did have a short conversation with a mother who has a daughter at Taylor Hicks. She was struggling at a previous school. She didn't tell me what school it was, but she said since her daughter has moved to Taylor Hicks that she's thrived. She felt like she's got the attention, the people there were listening, and she was just really appreciative of Taylor Hicks and the way they've taking care of our daughter's needs. So I was touched by that, and I just wanted to pass that on.
Great. Jen?
My son Mason has a tutor in town that has been tutoring in Prescott for a very long time. My much older son Evan was tutored by the same gentleman many years ago. And so he's tutored in math, PUSD students for years and years, and he actually came out to my car just to thank me. Not that it was me that did this, but for the new math curriculum. He is thrilled. He's amazed at the difference. Whoa. He feels like it really pushed Prescott leaps ahead of where we have been. It's been a struggle as a tutor to try to tutor around a curriculum that doesn't really match the things that, without a lot of resources. He's just thrilled. He thinks it's made the biggest difference for all the students, Mason included, but he's very, very pleased. Yeah, it was really good feedback. He has a lot of experience. He's been doing this a very, very long time.
Yeah, I bet.
So. I talked to that same tutor this last month, and now that you mentioned that, and he told me one of the teachers at Prescott High School gave homework over the break. I assume he was talking about fall break. He said, "I loved it, giving homework over the break. I think it's wonderful. We have some great teachers there." So, yeah.
Shay's shaking her head.
Horrible. That's terrible.
Yeah, there's multiple perspectives around.
Andy.
More positive. I was able to talk to a parent at the flag football game, a guy who was actually from my class in high school, and he's got 2 kids at Prescott High School right now. And he couldn't talk enough about the teachers at Prescott High School. And he's got a son that's doing AP courses as well as CTE courses. And so he's one of these kids that Mr. Neely says, this is a high point earner for me, because this kid takes the AP exams, he does the CTE programs, and he doesn't know what he's going to do, but he may have all these AP credits and end up going into a trade when he's finished, because that's what he loves. So this parent was so pleased with the teaching and the accessibility, the willingness to stay and do what they need to do with with the students, with the parents. He's very happy. And his daughter is a JV flag football player and is doing other things at the school, so just very involved. And I have to say, I don't think that this parent was very sold on PUSD before his kids started going. I think what has happened these last few years has kind of turned him around. So it was a really good exchange.
I have nothing. No one contacted me this time.
Well, I have a very recent one, and this has to deal with Abaya Judd. This is in the early stages, but just the PTA has raised a lot of money to help alleviate the issue of balls going into Williamson Valley, and it is a safety issue. And it's been like that for many years, and I think that they're doing a lot of work there. I just think that we know enough people and enough community members that we could probably pull something together that they don't have to waste their money, hard-earned money, and they could put it on different things. So we're going to tackle that. Projects that we love to do.
That would be
okay?
terrific.
So, but it's...
Do you get us some new turf there as well?
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think after the Fiesta Bowl, if you like the Fiesta Bowl logo, we could probably put it on there. Okay. What do they do with that turf? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure something. Okay, great. All right, I think that's it. Then item 7A, consent agenda. Does anybody have any items that they'd like to pull or highlight?
Yes, I would like to pull 7A2 and acknowledge the donations independently.
Okay. Any other items? Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 7A2.
I'll make that motion.
Motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. All right. Item 7A2. Jane.
All right, we just had 3 this month. We had one from the Yavapai Regional Medical Center, $1,500 to the Prescott High School Athletic Department. We had a donation from the Rotary Club, the Frontier Rotary Charitable Fund, $4,000 for the Family Resource Center for their winter wellness event. And we had a donation from the Abaya Judd PTA for $1,720 for a new coordinator at your school. Did you know that, ladies? No. Oh, well, there you go.
It's already in the teacher's lounge, and it's been there.
Oh, it's already in the teacher's lounge.
It's been
You
there
smelled
for
it.
a little bit, and this is making it officially PUSD property.
Nice. All right. Can we get a motion to approve item 7A2, approving the donations as presented?
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, item 7B, do we have any, one that would like to speak? All right. Moving on to item 7B1, consider approving the following overnight travel requests from Prescott High School Athletics. I won't read them off, but looks like Adam, you're going to do it? Okay, Adam's off to, or Misty's off to the game probably? Yeah, yeah, awesome. All right. All right.
Yeah, just for the sake of time, you'll see that there are quite a few upcoming overnight trips, you know, all related to our sports teams and some of the activities they have coming up.
All of them in-state except for the Disneyland, which is well-deserved, right, for the badminton team.
Yes, that is a celebration for our badminton team.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Is it
Everything else is
Is it an
a
event
winter sport
or an
activity
athletic
and
event?
then a little fall sports celebration for badminton.
Okay.
And all supported by the booster clubs, which I think is fabulous because it cuts down on the amount of money that the kids have to
Yeah,
spend.
pretty neat.
Again, sense of community.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then we'll take a motion to approve the overnight travel requests from Prescott High School Athletics as presented.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none.
Item 7B2, consider approving the school's facility oversight board terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites. Mr. Moore.
I recently, so once again, the process is you put in an application for a deficiency, and if they say yes, that is, the preventative maintenance has been of such that you're supposed to, and it's something that has been wear and tear. It's not an insurance item. Anyway, so Mile High's gym's floor is just separating, and it's buckling a little bit in areas. And so we took lots of pictures, and I submitted it, and they did say, yes, this is a deficiency. So now it starts, it may be replaced, by 2033. But no, actually, I'm asking for it to be repaired and not replaced because we think that it can be for a lot lesser of a cost. So the terms and conditions are in front of you as that first step. And then once you approve them, I'll submit it, and then it'll be just waiting for funding.
This was the floor that the Phoenix Suns put in, right? Many years ago, so under a grant. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so did a lot of the wear and tear happen when we did the work on the gym, like from scaffolding? No, just over time? Okay.
Just over time.
Okay. Cool. Any questions, comments? All right, then we'll take a motion to approve the School Facilities Oversight Board terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 7B3, consider approving the IGA between Yavapai County Education Service Agency and Prescott Unified School District Number 1 regarding the Title I Part D grant funding. Mr. Tenney.
Okay. So you may recall about a month-ish ago, we called you into a special board meeting to look at an agreement with the county for pass-through funds for the Juvenile Detention Center school to go through PUSD. They'd never done that before. The state had always had the money go to the county, and the county oversaw that, did the reporting and whatnot for that grant. The state was insistent, nope, it absolutely has to be through PUSD, so as to not hold up their funding and allow them to continue to provide educational services to the students who are there. We got the board together and time frame that the state said we needed. You were great to say, sure, whatever we need to do, we'll do. Since then, the state has gone back and said, actually, we're not going to do that this year. So they're going to go back to what they've always done, which is to have the county oversee that, and this is essentially just changing it back to what we've had in the past. So this will preempt the acceptance of the previous agreement that you had, and have a different kind of agreement as noted here in the agenda.
Common sense prevails.
For this year at least. We'll see. We'll see.
Good. Any questions about this one? No. We already discussed it. Okay, we'll take a motion to approve the IGA between YCESA and PUSD number 1 regarding the Title I Part D grant funding.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 7B4, consider approving the IGA between the Greater Phoenix Educational Management Council, Arizona Educational Management Council, what do you call it? Guppy Mac?
Guppy Mac is what they say.
Yeah, and PUSD.
Okay, super.
Yep.
So you probably know our principals and other folks are parts of professional organizations where professional development is available and where there's networking and information that comes about the legislature's efforts on behalf of schools, et cetera. And I'm part of, well, many of our administrators are part of the Arizona School Administrators Association, for example. You folks are all part of the Arizona School Board Association. Brian's part of the Arizona School Business Officials Association. I'm actually the leader of our Rural Arizona Schools Coalition that we don't pay any fees for directly from PUSD, and I'm also part of our Arizona Rural Schools Association that we do pay a fee to be part of that. Anyhow, there's a couple of benefits that come. Like I say, part of it's professional development, part of it's networking and information sharing, and a part of it, in some cases, is lobbying on behalf of schools with the legislature to try to affect change. There's one other organization that we've not been associated with in the last couple of years, and I've talked with several superintendents recently who say this is super valuable. It's kind of a parallel organization to ASA, Arizona School Administrators Association. The thing that's unusual about this is instead of just me saying, this is great, the board has given me discretion to join professional organizations, actually part of my contract. This organization says, hey, if you want to be a part of us, fantastic, but you need to run it by your board first and get your attorney to sign off on an IGA with us as well. So just bringing that to you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. Sarah, do you remember the cost for a year? It's relatively nominal. It's in the 500 or less per year range.
And it would just be you, right?
Yeah. On behalf, as a representative of the district, we would become part of the Greater Phoenix Educational Management Council.
Any questions? All right. We'll take a motion to approve the IGA between Guppy Mac and PUSD.
Well done. That was
So moved.
Okay. And seconded. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Welcome to Guppy Mac.
Thank you. It's mostly the large districts in Phoenix, plus some large districts around the state. Flagstaff, Humboldt's part of it, for instance, Yuma, etc.
Yes. Well, item 7C1, Mr. Moore, Chief Financial Officer, has prepared the school board summary budget report for your review.
I will be quicker than Kelsey's presentation, so as presented. Just to do a comparison of.
I didn't time the two, but I think that was quicker.
I mean, it was close. I want to let you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Jen, do you have any questions?
Yes. Actually, I should just stare and wait.
Awesome.
And then nod and as presented.
Thank you. Item 7C2, bond and override discussion. Mr. Ten.
Okay, super. I don't know how much time you want to spend on this tonight. We still have kind of a long runway before we're there, and given the time, you may want to abbreviate this conversation and have it next month. But I'll tell you a couple of things. Brian and I met recently with some folks who their business is to help support and manage and oversee bond issuances for school districts. We have some information that we got from them that we can share with you if you'd like as well. We had a brief conversation online with a gentleman who does consulting with districts on overrides. The key things that he typically does are he gets with boards in advance, and there's usually a fee for some information that he can provide and support that he can provide. And then oftentimes if a board does decide, okay, now we want to move, actually we're going to vote to move forward with a bond and or override, then that gentleman often becomes employed by a political action committee that forms in the wake of the board's decision. So, and we have him scheduled to visit with you in person at the next board meeting. So you may want to postpone some of this conversation until we hear from him. He'll give you some options and you'll have some questions, but wanted to share that with you as well. Like Jen said, we've been reaching out to several different, and a couple of you mentioned, different community members who were part of the previous successful bond and override elections, some other folks who can give us some good input. One of the things you may want to discuss tonight briefly, or at length, up to you, is if you want to have an advisory committee formed to give you some direction, some advice, basically, on if you do go for a bond and override, it sounds like you're leaning that direction strongly, how much for each one and exactly for what. And it might be useful to get input from some people who are pretty passionate about this. Absolutely. And if you do move forward to that, I want to be one of the leaders of that. And then some people who are like, you know what, that's not my thing. I'm not going to knock doors for you, but I represent some people in the community who aren't keen to pay higher taxes, and here's my input. So kind of blend all of those voices together and see if you can come up with some good advice for you. And if you'd like, I can help you form that. I've reached out to principals already and asked them to get with me 2 to 5 names of people that they think might fall in that former group, people who might be passionate about helping things move forward. We've visited with some community members already who might provide additional information as well. So anyhow, that's what I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions, but you have whatever length of discussion you like at this point.
So you're suggesting it would be about 5 people? Is that what
Not
I just
necessarily.
heard?
So I've asked each principal, can you give me 2 to
Okay.
5 names of people at your school who might be a part of that? So we can kind of choose from that whatever you want. If you want 10 people to get together some afternoon, we can do that. You can give me administrative direction to pull people together in a meeting. I can do that. We can do that online for a little bit, but I'd like those folks to be able to talk through it and have maybe a couple board members be part of that, not the whole group, because we'd have to go through the meeting posting piece, but a couple of you there to hear firsthand what those folks have to say. That's one place we could start the ball rolling. But if you've got other ideas, super open to that. Just whatever you want to do, that's my job. Big part of my job for the next little bit is to move forward whatever you want to do with this.
So I think our advisory committee could be smaller than our PAC committee, right?
Mhm.
When the time comes
Sure
where there's a
could.
PAC involved, that committee is usually a much larger group and a lot more boots on the ground, so to speak, to really get things accomplished. But I love the idea of having an advisory committee that comes from all different areas of the community, not just our schools, but throughout the community, so that we can get a really good pulse on what's tolerable and what we can do and what's going to make the biggest impact for our students, and see how we can, what is that sweet spot that we can manage. So I like the idea of forming an advisory committee. And then that committee, some people will probably continue to go on and help form a PAC, and others may not. They just may choose to help us kind of identify what we need, and I believe that was very much the case in the past. Not everyone who sat in the meetings about what to ask for stayed involved necessarily during the PAC portion.
Sure. So the timeline is always, never want to get behind in the timeline. So for an advisory committee, what do you all think? Do we kind of start figuring that out, wait for the next meeting at this point, wait for, what's his name that's coming up?
Paul Ulen is the gentleman's name, he consults on a lot of bonds and overrides all across the state. The reason he's not here tonight is because there's 15 districts who are contracting with him who are getting election results as we speak.
I'd like to see it happen as soon as possible. I mean, I feel like I know you say we've got a long runway, but we're a year away from this election. And I think, honestly, I feel like we need to get this group going pretty quickly.
But we're limited on that committee with only 2 board members at the most because of open meeting.
Well, not necessarily. Probably, some of the input we received recently was if the board is going to establish a committee, we're going to have to post for that anyway. And in that case, I guess there's no reason we couldn't have, right? Help me think through
Yeah,
this. There's
any
no reason we
board
couldn't have
committee
as
has
many
to
board members as we're interested.
Public, anyway.
If we're going to have a
We
public
have to have
meeting.
public meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the committee that you guys are, from what I've heard, planning on assembling, how are you going to account for diversity such as race factors, what was the other one? Economic factors, stuff like that?
For the committee members?
Yes.
Yeah, as far as ethnicity, my guess is it would be pretty representative of Prescott, which is kind of what it's in this room for the most part. There's certainly exceptions to that, but I don't know that we would intentionally try to find somebody who's of Asian American origin or whatnot. I'm not sure that ends up being value added for this committee, but if others feel differently, certainly open to that. And then you're right, we'd want to have some people who are probably in an economic situation where they say, $87 a year, I got that, no problem. And some other people say, $87 a year, are you kidding me? Those voices in the room would be useful. We were kind of thinking kind of a diversity of backgrounds in terms of, or at least I was thinking, in terms of what they do in town, maybe some people from city council, and certainly board members, and some people from the Republican Women of Prescott, and et cetera. I mean, those types of groups, in addition to some very keen, active volunteers in our schools, in terms of moms and dads and others maybe, so that kind of thing, yeah.
And probably some people who are commercial property owners
There you
and
go.
various other types of
That's a
property
great
owners,
thought.
because
Great thought.
it impacts them differently, and hearing their impact, their perspective, I think, is also important.
Yeah, in terms of groups that, our intent is really, it's really all the different types of groups that we have represented within an election, right? So we talked what Mr. Tenney talked about, but there's also, you know, professionals, there's firefighters, there's civic leaders, there's civic servants throughout the community. There's who does vote. We do have to reach the retirement community. That's very important. We also have to reach parents. We have to reach the business owners, and we want to put, that's who we have to reach. You know, it's the voters. I don't see race. I don't see anything contributing to anything as far as, you know, what we're tackling. It's going to be, you know, who votes in this community and who are the entities, because we have to convince them that this is the right thing that we need to do for our schools.
And for them.
And for us to be a thriving community, you know. So that's what I see as far as this advisory committee, and then who will be part of the PAC.
So what's a way that you guys are planning on advocating for these bonds/overrides if you decide to put them on the ballot? How are you planning on advocating for those?
A lot of it for the bond will be really for the facilities and our aging, you know, what we need for the schools. We really have to put our minds together on what is important for the override. You know, what makes sense. We want to keep talented teachers here. We want to make sure that, you know, they're compensated correctly. Can we put, you know, what else do we need within the override? That's, the advisory committee is going to tell us a lot of that. What is that dollar amount? But we've learned in the past, it's, you know, let's see what the list is that you want to buy, what's important. Because that's what our voters are asking for, and we owe that to them. And then we can show at the end, yes, for dollar, this is what we spent over those years.
Right.
And I think you might be asking, how do we, let's assume we're going to try to go for bond, how do we go out and advocate? Like do public meetings, signs, the PAC?
Right. It's a political action committee. Once the board decides, then the political action committee is formed, and that committee is in charge of getting the word out and impacting the community in a way that is, you know, from fundraising to educating, all of those things will take place once we make a decision. But this initial committee is to help make the decision.
Correct. That's how I
Give you advice to the five of you make that decision, yeah. Do you, maybe this, again, I'm guessing 20 different names from principals over the next.
You're gonna get at least that many.
I asked them to give it to me by noon today, but we all forgot about that. So I'll ask them to give it to me by noon tomorrow, and I'll have a bunch of names. If you've got ideas about people, again, from a kind of diversity of perspectives, who you think would be good to reach out to, that'd be great. And I can get you a whole list, and then you can kind of give me some feedback of those folks who you think would be good to have there to have a discussion together. We can give a little bit of brief information about what bonds and overrides are, where the school district's at, what needs we may have, and then talk about, you know, we should kind of show Brian's calculator. If you've got a typically priced home, $650,000, holy smokes, in Prescott, we go for a 5% override, that's going to cost you $33 a year. We ask for a $15 million bond, that's going to cost you an additional $54 a year. Is that tolerable? Are those the right figures? Should we be higher? Should we be lower? Et cetera. And then, you know, bring up what we talked about. You talked about at great length last time. You asked for a 5% override. That's awesome. 10% is better, may not pass. But if we go back 5 years from now and people say no, 5%, we can maybe find a way to absorb within the district and not cut people's salaries. 10%, you'd be cutting people's salaries, and that would be disastrous for this district. So share that with people, and then, you know, get advice from them. I don't know that they'd all have. We'd have to come up with a process for, you know, how to distill different voices there. But we could do that. Do you want to share some names with me? Do you have other ideas? You tell me. I'm happy to take your direction and we'll make it work.
I think it'd be good to share those names with you through another forum than here.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I don't want to put anybody on the spot publicly at this point. I think we can share names with you, and you with your staff can make the determination of who you think would be positive. That's just my opinion.
Names that you've been
I can,
received as well.
When I have them,
and maybe
at
if
this
they
point.
mind to.
See if they happen to mesh.
Would that work too?
Yeah.
I sure will. Yeah.
Because they're also kind of signing up for it too. We don't want to assume that
Yeah, we'd want to reach out and tell people, here's what we have in mind. Are you interested in meeting, a week from Thursday for an hour and a half?
And I guess before bringing that up in a public meeting, I think we want to,
Agreed.
we don't want to do that now and have people say, hey, I heard your name on the board meeting.
Yeah. If you say Haley Reeder, she might be super excited or she might be kind of upset. So don't say Haley Reeder in front of Haley Reeder, just as one example.
So once we get.
There are some folks like Haley who already volunteered.
Right, she's already,
changed
and
mind.
she's here.
So,
So once we get these names to you,
yes.
how do you call it, or don't you?
So, yeah, great question. I'll take your direction on that. If you want to do what Andy just suggested, which is say, hey, choose X number of people from that list you think would be a good mix of opinions, happy to do that. If you want me to share 30 names with you and have you say, here's my top 10 picks and see, who are the top 15. If there's any number of ways we could do that.
Okay.
And I'm happy to, again, take your direction on that.
Could we do that between now and then our next meeting, and then we can
Sure.
kind of say, this is what we kind of decided on?
I'm hearing a sense of urgency that I kind of share. I'd
Right.
love to get some names
I
in
would
the
like to
next
get this
3
going.
days.
Yeah.
Make decisions in the next 5 for who to reach out to and set something up 2 or 3 weeks from now, even before the next meeting.
I think
So
that
you've
would
got
be-
some initial feedback that you can use at the next meeting to discuss
Right.
further. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
There's your direction.
Great. So I'll reach out to you with a reminder email to share some names with
That'll
me.
work for you, but.
I'll follow up with principals as well, and we'll get some, some PTA moms and dads and others' names. And, yeah. If you know parents, awesome. I think we're going to get some pretty good parent names. If you know additional people who you think, oh my gosh, I go to church with so-and-so, or this guy works with me, he'd be great, or, this guy parked on my front lawn the other week and I hate him, but man, he'd be a great voice on it, whatever you want.
On this level committee, I mean, this initial advisory committee do you think student voices are important at this level, or do you think that's the bigger committee?
That's a great question. I would think that some older students would be, we don't want third graders to try to explain.
No.
Right? We could get some kids like Shay who are obviously pretty sharp and have thought through some angles on this and could get some input.
Yeah.
That, again, 100% up to you, but I'd be happy to.
And I
to
think
work
the
with Mr. Neely on that.
student piece will be really important when we get the pack organized.
Yeah,
and
100%
And we
on
want to
that.
get out the vote, and we want to get them all registered to vote, and
Makes a big difference.
If you do end up wanting students to be a part of it, I would love to be a part of it if that is something that you guys want to do.
Sign her up.
She doesn't do enough, so let's just put one more thing on her plate.
I agree 100% with Brett said, and I saw a lot of head nodding as well. If a pack forms, having
For sure.
students be an integral part of that is likely
Absolutely.
going to be beneficial to the school district.
I think at this point do we want to think about student voices in this initial?
Yeah, if you're looking at percentages and property taxes and whatnot, not too many students are
Yeah.
going to have a lot of context to share meaningful input there. But if you want to include them at this stage, absolutely, I'm happy to do that. For sure later on, for sure later.
Yeah, I would-
A big
Yes.
part of what goes
Yeah,
on later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Thanks, Shay.
You're hired.
All right.
All right, anything else?
Okay.
Some names.
All right.
I'll follow up with you and we'll go from there.
All right, we'll move on to
work, but that's
item 7C3. We know we're going to have a visitor for anything else, future agenda items that you
I
come
loved
to
having
mind?
the students here today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would love to try to include maybe at least one.
I know it came for a longer meeting, but really, I was kind of talking to Jen at the break. It's what we're experiencing is we've kind of created an avenue where there's a lot to highlight, and a lot of other schools beyond our CTE want to have a platform to say, this is all the great things we're doing too, and we witnessed it tonight, so I think we could do that.
I'm curious, and I think we've missed our chance to do this as a presentation at a conference, but I wonder what other districts are doing if they're bringing groups of students in to talk about things like this and to share, and giving our students in the district a chance to kind of do that professional development type of thing, so.
There are very few districts in this state that even
Have
have
student
students on their
representatives.
That's
representatives on their
unusual.
board.
Students
It's
presenting at board
extremely
meetings,
unusual.
my understanding is that's fairly common.
Is it? Okay.
But students being a part of the
Yeah.
discussion at the dais is fairly uncommon.
You're one of few, Shay.
Yay!
And that's-
Going to the convention next month, we could maybe,
Yeah,
even just
we can find
individually
that out.
as we're networking, ask other boards
Yeah, it'd be interesting
how
kind
they
of to
include
hear that.
students too.
Network over there at the conference.
At the conference. I don't know if we're all going, but.
I think we
Weren't you
are.
talking about doing a breakout session for Keystone at one point?
We talked about potentially doing that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're past the deadline to
Are we?
be
Okay.
presenters this time, but they've asked us to present about our volunteer program, and
Okay,
I
perfect.
think present about our Keystone program. There's a handful of other districts in the state that are doing something similar. I can't imagine too many of them are doing it more successfully than we are. It's been pretty spectacular. So, yeah, we could get on, next year's agenda. They're already
I think
poking
that
at
would be
us
great.
to present. And to answer your question, I think we've got 4 board members confirmed and a 5th, a definite maybe for Asbury.
Who's our maybe, Stan?
Knew that one.
It may be early morning.
Man who's trying to run a business and have young kids at home and do everything else in the community, plus be our president.
sorry.
That makes some sense. No, that's great. But yeah, if you can't make it for a day, that'd be awesome. So, yeah. Let me just give something food for thought. I've had 2 or 3 discussions in the last few weeks with other superintendents and people, and they say, so you meet twice a month, right, with your board? I said, no, we meet once a month. Are you kidding me? District your size, you meet only once a month? I'm like, yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah,
that
we
way.
meet for 4
So-
hours, though.
Yeah, so that's part of my point. One of the reasons that we're still here 3 hours after we start is that we meet less frequently than most districts our size. If you ask me, do I want to come here twice a month at night and do this? The answer is no, but
Once is good. Once
whatever
a
you
little
want.
longer is good.
Yeah.
Great. But just know that part of the reason we have long meetings is because you're cramming 2 meetings worth of stuff into 1 meeting, so.
Yeah, we realize
Basically.
We can blame it
But-
on Kelsey tonight, just celebrating those.
No, it was
All
great.
celebrating.
They were great presentations. They were well worth the time spent.
We love to hear good things.
Yeah, if you want to do all these great things in 1 meeting a month, we can do it, but we're going to be here till late-ish. And that's good with me. Whatever you want, just food for thought.
We're good.
Okay?
So do we still like the idea of having at least one student or one school present
Yeah,
something?
you've given us direction, right, to continue to have CTE-based, plus potentially other things from the high school.
And I think
and
even
then-
down eventually to the younger kids, about things they're doing.
Right.
courses they're
That,
in.
that was brought up in our last meeting. Please start to do that. So we
Good
had
for the
Mile High
younger kids to
tonight.
Get up and talk to them.
We'll see if we can get some Granite kids. And then when if we go lower than that, we'd probably have like a principal with,
Yeah, oh, of course.
I don't expect too many 4th graders can stand up and be as eloquent
You might
as
be surprised.
our
There'd be a
kids tonight,
couple
but
out there
yeah,
that would
maybe.
like to come in.
I think it could be, sorry.
I was just gonna say we might get a stool there for the
There you go.
lectern.
I think it could be like very what the hell? It would be very beneficial to have students from, for example, Lincoln or Taylor Hicks, even if they come in with a teacher to
Sure.
talk about the
Yeah.
things that they've done.
Yeah.
I think that would be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I want to see the Discovery Gardens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll set those up. So
Yeah.
kind of the direction I felt like we got last time is let's continue the high school each month, but then also have another school kind of in tandem. That works for you? Okay.
I would love to see a special education student.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it might
Oh, that's a neat
be a
idea.
struggle for them, and I just think it would be tender.
Yeah.
That's a neat idea. We help me remember that. Let's talk with Maya about coordinating with principals to determine what that looks like. I like that idea a lot.
You guys are awesome. All right. Well, let's, we know.
Doesn't
what's
Brian have to do something?
I've already apologized 5 times.
She's already apologized
We
for
have,
something.
yeah, as far as
We got a
future
meeting.
agenda items, et cetera, we just give us the short version and we'll.
Short version is we reconfigured our district in 2016. My predecessor didn't update that with the state, and it caught up with us in August. The grants management part of ADE basically said our $1 million worth of ESA grants were going to be put on hold because what they had for the grade level bands of our schools did not match what's called the education organizational system with ADE. So over a 2-month period, we cleaned it up, and that was also the same time where we got Granite Mountain's name to be changed. Unfortunately, I did not think of the special ed self-contained classrooms that we have. We don't call them self-contained. Specialized learning environments that have grades that are outside of the typical. Granite Mountain and Mile High are the two. So each of them has a program that's 5/8. So right now, we're not receiving any funding for students that are outside of the typical grade bands. But actually, there's an urgency to this because special ed has to do what's called an October 1 report, and you have 3 times to make it accurate. If you get to the 3rd time, it's not good. Tomorrow is the first time you can make it accurate, but it's not because of this issue. The next time that we can submit is December 10th, which is only less than 5 weeks away. And if we don't get the grade bands to be fixed by then, it's going to be an issue, and we'll actually be monitored heavily in our special education programs, because it will be the 2nd year that we end up in what's called phase 3 of correction of the 10-1 account. Anyway, long story short, I've already called in a favor with school finance. They're going to rush it, but it all starts with the governing board vote to have 5-8 at both Mile High and Granite, and then my work will start. But with,
do we need to have 8 through 12 at the high school, or did we leave that?
no, I've already asked, because they're 8th graders and they're just taking a class. We should not have 8th grade at PHS.
Occasionally we have a sped kiddo who's in 8th grade will go to the high school as well.
I've asked Maya for the grade bands of all of the self-contained programs, and so if there is, we need to include 8th grade with the high school. We should, just so we don't have to do this again. But even before this, all of our elementary schools were K-5.
No, he just mentioned we don't have to because they're just the one class, but yeah.
Yeah,
there's
not
other
for the
kids.
geometry class.
It's not their homeschool, but there are some sped kids for whom the homeschool becomes something outside of their grade band, so anyhow.
So by me fixing something, I didn't include a thought process about grade bands in our specialized learning environments, and so timing is really of the essence, and so I'm hoping that.
Can we do this now?
No,
We can't
it's
walk
got to be
voting
an
item
agenda.
into a meeting.
We
that's
can,
right.
when's as soon
That's
as we
right.
can? Thursday?
But Thursday's the
We can
soonest,
post
because we
tomorrow.
have
We got to post
And have
tomorrow.
you get together on Zoom on Thursday, yes, if that
Yeah,
works for you.
it'd be 3 voting items, 1 for each school. Boom, boom, boom.
We can do Thursday after 4 or
I was
at
gonna
like noon.
say, after 4 would be fine for me, noon would not be fine for me.
Unless
What about Stan?
people
When you get home,
are
Stan?
insistent on being part of a ministerial vote, all we would need is 3 of you, of course.
Yeah.
Totally up to you how you want it.
Anytime Thursday is good for me.
Okay. Do we have 3 then, there?
That's because he's retired.
Yes.
Jen can do it at 4, is that what you said?
I can.
4 or noon, anytime. Would you
Noon
be
I can't
available
do,
for
so
a couple
we have
minutes
another
Thursday
person
or
that
not?
could do
Totally
noon.
okay if not. Sorry, let's see.
Don't have my schedule in front of me, so
I
I might be able to
apologize.
shuffle things around, but
But wait, how about just the 3 of us?
if you got 3 for sure and a possible maybe,
Does that work?
I could do 11. Does that not ring it? Where's yours? 12?
forget it, Jen.
I can do 3 in the morning.
11.
Jen, what did you say?
I said noon or 4.
Noon or 4.
I'm just running a meeting that whole day, and so I can do it on
We
my
could
phone.
also do it Friday.
We could also do it Friday. It really is this week, because as soon as you
I can be
vote,
more open on Friday.
yeah.
I can be more open on Friday also.
How does noon on Friday work for people?
No, she's kidding.
Wow.
Like, still open.
And he's like,
Still open.
I'm open for the next 5 weeks. I'm Andy Frayer.
You guys are filling up my calendar right now. I'm telling you.
Can we get 3 on Friday then?
Yeah.
1, 2.
We're saying
I am in a meeting, but it's with only 2 people, and I can
noon on Friday for 10 minutes,
Absolutely.
in and out. Does
Yes,
that work
sir.
for people?
I'm a maybe
Just let
still.
us know.
I don't,
Okay. We'll reach out to all of you and just.
I just have to go to the national, I have to go to your meeting at 12:10, right? Can't miss it, because I spaced.
Actually not going to be there at that meeting,
not gonna be
unfortunately.
there?
Yeah, we have state, so I'll be in Phoenix.
Okay, so I have to go to that National Honor Society meeting at 12:10.
We'll have you off by 12:10. Do you want to jump on
Okay, I
at the
can-
high school?
We can come,
Oh, jump on with that.
jump on with who?
Adam, would you be able to make a computer available for Jane if she stopped by the high school at noon?
I don't even.
large screen if you're interested.
Yeah, or we could
Yes.
just, aren't you going to run it from here? I'll just come by here.
but you might not be able to make it to the high school
school
by
by noon.
12:10.
Oh, what time are you doing it?
They're going to do it
12?
at 12.
Oh, I'll be
So
at the
if you
high
go to
school
the high
at
school
12.
at 12, and then you can.
Great.
Okay. High
Sarah,
school
reach
at
out.
12, your office, be there.
On Friday the 7th,
Okay.
correct?
12 o'clock,
So we got 3.
Adam's office.
We got at least 3, and if additional people can make it, awesome. If not, you're off the hook.
You need to stop laughing over there.
It's like 1, 2, 3, none.
Okay, got it. Adam's off straight to NA.
Oh, guys.
But you're not going to be there.
I know, I'll miss you.
Sorry about all the rules and red tape around things. Appreciate it.
We love to
Being
help.
flexible with
Why
us.
can't we just plan it now?
I asked whether an agenda item could be walked in and.
We're not breaking
to
any
post-
law.
Clark said, I don't see why.
If
Sarah
you're
said
not going to
no.
vote on something that impacts the district.
Sarah-
No.
Oh, yeah.
Sarah nixed
We wanna
that.
Keep us straight. Keep us straight, Sarah.
Keep us in line.
Thank you so much for your time, and
You got it?
I
Okay.
apologize.
So beyond the meeting Friday, then our next regular meeting is on December 2nd. Professional Development Day on the November 10th, and then Veterans Day on the 11th, so lots of festivities there. And then Thanksgiving break, 26th through 28th, and we're adjourned.
All right.